Hi, y'all, and welcome to today's live stream. It is a huge day for the Adelson saga. This is the end of Donna Adelson's saga, if not the end of the entire Dan Markel murder case. But there has been a years-long search for justice for Dan Markel, and we are finally reaching the stage in which the fifth person is going to be sentenced for the murder of Dan Markel. Today, Donna Adelson, the matriarch of the family, she was the fifth to be tried, and one pled guilty, four have been tried. She was the fourth to be tried, and she was convicted by a jury of hiring hitmen to kill Dan Markel. Now, Dan Markel had been married to Donna's daughter, Wendi, and we cannot know exactly what sentence Donna is going to receive, but we do know the minimum sentence, and that is life without parole for her first-degree murder of Dan Markel. It has now been more than 10 years since Dan Markel was shot in his driveway in Tallahassee. Two hitmen drove from Miami, followed him as he went to the gym, and then followed him home. They drove to his home. They already had the address. And Dan Markel, who was a law professor at FSU, drove into his open carport and was sitting in the car, probably gathering his things, preparing to go inside his own home, when the two hitmen walked up to his window. One of them shot him point blank in the head. A neighbor found Dan Markel sitting there in the car. He was clinging to life, but he never spoke again, and he died the next day. I said 5 people are now in prison for their part for arranging this murder. Donna is in jail, but she'll be moving to prison shortly. So first, we've got the hitmen, Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera. They were hired by Katie Magbanua, and then Katie Magbanua was the former girlfriend, maybe at the time still girlfriend, of Charlie Adelson. Charlie was Donna's son and the brother of Wendi Adelson, who had been married to Dan Markel. So today we are finally going to see the end, the sealing of this chapter with Donna Adelson. Will there be more to come? Of course. There will be an appeal. That will take some years, but there is little chance of an appeal winning in any event, and especially not here. I don't think there are a lot of chances. The Adelsons will argue specifically some evidence issues, and will argue that some of the things that were used against her in evidence should not have been allowed in. That will probably be their number one argument on appeal. So special shout out to our first 5 in the chat today: Bama Queen, Pinky, Monique, Dawn, Amesky, and Derry Amison. Good to have all of you, and welcome everybody. So I asked y'all, I want to do a couple things as we do the countdown. The actual sentencing is supposed to begin at 3. So what we'll do is, so my feed is frozen, but the audio is good. I'm going to try one thing. Oh, Marlon's telling me keep going. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's talk about, I want to show you a video and talk about what happened at the verdict for Donna Adelson. We're going to watch the entire thing. We're going to watch her reaction, and we're just going to talk about it as we go. I've also asked for people to put questions in, and to be sure to put question marks at the beginning. So I'm going to be also talking about some of your questions. So let's go ahead and watch the verdict come in. We're counting down the hour till we get to her sentencing right now. That's Harvey, Donna's husband, not indicted, although some people believe there's a possibility he might be. There's Donna's legal team, you see, and Donna herself.
Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict? If you please can hand the verdict form to the bailiff. Having reviewed the verdict form, it is in its proper order. At this time, I will publish the verdict. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1 of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 2 of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 3. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 3 of the indictment, solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And it is signed and dated by the foreperson. One moment. Members of the jury, the bailiff will escort you to the jury room.
Okay, let's stop it there because there is already so much to discuss. Donna Adelson's reaction, huge, right? She's very emotional about it. She immediately cried out, "Oh my God," as soon as he said the first of 3 guilty verdicts. She immediately reacts to that. The judge isn't happy about that. He immediately tells her, Ms. Adelson, control yourself. And then when he goes ahead and reads the verdict and then sends the jury out, he's going to discuss this with Donna more specifically. She's obviously reacting. Now, I thought there was a good question from, let's see, let me go back because I asked for questions early on and I saw a good one in here. Georgie Nod wanted to know, do you think Donna was genuinely surprised that the jury found her guilty, or was she just acting? This is kind of my thought. A video more than one has surfaced of Donna Adelson that morning as she was being brought to the courthouse. So body cam of her being brought to the courthouse. And then of that evening after she was taken back to the jail following the fact that she now knew the verdict that she was being declared guilty. And you saw this incredibly stark difference in the 2 Donnas. The Donna of the morning was chipper and happy. She said, well, the judge may not like it about when asked, when they were talking about the day. She seemed to honestly think that she might be acquitted. That mirrors what happened with Charlie. You may remember that Charlie seemed to be shocked that he had not actually been acquitted. He even gave away all his food. Remember all the extra things he had bought, the concessions he had bought over time. He gave those away. I'm not going to need those. I'm going home. To an outside observer, I think it's really clear that they were both going to be convicted. I don't think there was a lot of question about that. But in her mind, apparently, Donna didn't think that. And do I believe she was surprised? She was at least horrified, if not surprised. She seemed too happy in the morning to have fully believed that she was going to the gallows for the day, so to speak, that she was going in to receive a guilty verdict. Just didn't seem like she thought that was even a possibility. Now, there's some lifting of the load when you reach the end of a case, because at least that pressure is over. You made your decisions, you made your choices, you made your arguments, you put on your evidence, and it's done. You've done what you can do. All that was left at that point was closing arguments. And so it could be that she just believed it was just a lighter load and she didn't think a verdict would come in that day. But it seems to me like she was genuinely surprised. She was, at a minimum, genuinely upset. I don't think she's faking anything here. And you have to remember that there are 2 possibilities for her being upset right here. One possibility is that she's upset, filled with remorse, and so devastated by what she's done and her guilt, overwhelmingly so, that she is just torn apart by what she's done. That would not make sense in this context. because she hasn't been upset about her role or anything in it throughout the trial. Remember, she cried through the first witnesses till the judge told her to stop, but those were all related to the loss of Danny Markel, to the fact that he had been killed, not to anything related to her role in it. So I don't think that makes sense. The other possibility here is that she feels bad for herself. She feels bad because things are going to happen to her that she doesn't want to happen. It doesn't mean that she's not upset. Very humanly, on a very baseline, ordinary human level, she is upset, devastated, horrified about what's happening to her. It doesn't mean that she feels guilty, but I think it does mean, yeah, she is really, really upset. I don't think there's any acting here. I think she is hit with the realization that she is now about to be in prison for life. That's the only penalty for this. And that is now what is going to happen to her. She's not getting out of it. And I think the realization of that was traumatic. Should it have been? No. I think that certainly her attorneys probably were and definitely should have been telling her, this is a very hard case to win. Not very likely. Occasionally, you can normally, percentages, looks grim. All of that should have been said to Donna Adelson. But it was all probably said to Charlie, and he didn't hear any of it. What we know is he was surprised enough that he had given away all his commissary stuff, like all that food, all his special candy bars and treats, all given away because he didn't think he would be back. So Donna Adelson in the morning joking about, well, she hoped she would be gone today too. And they were talking about getting off for the day. And she said, well, I hope I'm getting off for today. And they were just joking around. So I felt like there was a huge difference in the way they were acting. And when she got back to the jail, she was leaning to one side with her eyes closed, just kind of moaning and upset. I have no doubt that she was upset on a very genuine level. I think the reason for it would be how she felt about what was happening to her. So the jury is heading out at this point, and the paralegal, or I think she's paralegal, is comforting Donna, who is inconsolable. She is not to be comforted.
Mrs. Adelson, while this was not the outcome I'm sure that you desired, there will not be any further outbursts in front of the jury. If you cannot control yourself, I am going to have to determine if you will be removed from the remainder of this process.
So you can see the judges told her no outbursts in the courtroom. And of course, judges often say that they don't want outbursts in the courtroom because obviously, and she's nodding that she understands. But as you know, the judge's job is to keep the decorum there in the courtroom. That's what he's supposed to do. And so he has to make sure, and he's already warned everybody in the gallery at this stage, no outbursts, don't say anything. When the jury comes in, no matter what happens, I don't want to hear anything from you. He's telling Donna the same thing. My personal view is that it's a little different for defendants. Among other things, what is happening to her is supposed to be punishment. It's supposed to be bad. That's why we have it. Life in prison is not supposed to be better than life outside prison. It's supposed to be worse. That is why it is a consequence for something society says is wrong, like murder. And that's exactly what's supposed to be happening to Donna here. So to me, this is a reaction that is normal, but based on how she feels about herself and about what is happening to her. And if I were suddenly sentenced to life in prison, we would be upset. So I think that's a normal reaction.
Before the jurors are brought back in, we will take a brief 2-minute break. Please give her tissues if she needs them.
Okay, so this gives her attorneys a chance to kind of talk about, okay, we can't interrupt the flow of the court. It is our responsibility.
Brought back into the room, does the defense wish to have the jurors polled before they are discharged?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well.
He's saying, let's get as much done as we can while they're out, because she's going to be hard to control. And because she is clearly very upset. And so, my opinion. I mean, and who wouldn't be? That's what it's supposed to mean. It's supposed to be something worse that happens to her. That is what its function is. The function of life in prison without parole. That's what it's supposed to be. So let's go ahead and we'll talk a little bit more about Donna as she reacts. And so my view, Georgie, is I think that this is a normal reaction.
Their portion of the trial.
Okay, so they're about to pull everybody back in, and they're going to get started again. And Bob, I'll go ahead and stop it for a minute. I see Bonbon's question here. Do you think Donna truly realizes the incredibly different day-to-day lifestyle transferring from jail to prison? She complained about minor things in jail. How will she survive prison? So this whole process is going to be difficult for her. It is supposed to be. That is what's happening here. And that's why I think that as a society, we have to recognize that what's happening is intentionally punishment. And we do that because we think what the person did was that wrong. It's not justice if it's a happy, rosy outcome for her. That wouldn't be justice if she murdered somebody. It has to have a consequence. This is real life consequences for adults who are involved in the justice system. So do I think she realizes how different it will be? No, I don't think she has much of an idea, but I don't know either. I mean, I don't really know what the differences will be for her from the women's prison that she'll be going to from the jail. So I can't really answer that either. So, but I doubt seriously that she knows. She would have known if she had been able to follow Charlie a little more closely, but I don't know how much information about Charlie has gotten through. And he was in the men's prison section, so perhaps that would be a little different. Her son, Charlie, started out in jail, of course, in Florida as he was being tried, and now is actually in prison in South Dakota to protect him because he was believed to be endangered because of his testimony related to gang activity. So he is no longer even in Florida, and I don't believe Donna and Charlie have had communication. So I don't think that she will have much of an idea of what the differences are. All right, let's keep watching as we're leading up to the sentencing of Donna, which begins at 3. So you can see they're continuing to talk to her and try to coach her through this as the jury is to be brought back in, and they're going to start again. So you can hear the jury tramping back in. Some of the jurors talked.
Before I discharge you for this evening, I am briefly going to poll you concerning whether your verdict is unanimous at the request of one of the parties.
So he's going to ask every juror.
Appropriately respond.
And it's a pretty easy answer. And we know that because the juror who was the foreman, the foreperson, told us that what she had done was repeatedly poll everybody on the jury to make sure they all believed exactly what they were saying, guilty on each and every count. And if there were any questions, they stopped, they went over it. They went, frankly, into an unusual amount of really good, serious discussion about what exactly should happen with Donna Adelson. It does seem like they took their charge extremely seriously. You can see Donna still devastated and upset. I don't think there's any fake about that. I think she really is upset. Who wouldn't be if you were being sent to life in prison without parole? I think it would be normal to be upset. The question is not whether she's upset, but whether it's justice. That's what the issue is. And I think sometimes it's easy to get the two mixed up, to think, well, if she's upset, then she isn't taking responsibility. She's not going to take responsibility. She's not going to take responsibility. They've still got sound up. She's not going to take responsibility today in a statement. She's not going to do that. So at no point do I think she's going to say the only way we know that it's justice is her reaction, frankly.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and consideration of this case. I also wish to advise you of some
Dan's mother
privileges that are enjoyed by jurors.
And father.
No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain their private affair as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. Although you are at liberty to speak with anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, from those who might seek to find fault with you, from the media, from attorneys, or elsewhere. It will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. With that being said, I want to extend my thanks on behalf of the entire Second Circuit for your service in this matter. You are discharged. Have a good evening.
So the jury is being discharged, and at this point, there were some victim impact statements made by Dan's parents, and they probably won't be at the sentencing today because that was why they were allowed to make their statements early. They're from Canada, so they had been a long way. They had come a long way for this. But the jurors said,
the jury's verdict, with the jury having found the defendant guilty of the 3 charges of the indictment, is the defense asking for a pre-sentence report on counts 2 and 3. As to count 1, the penalty is statutory, and essentially there is no modification for it.
So he's saying that there may be some discussion about what her sentence should be for counts 2 and counts 3. That's not decided. He will make that decision today. But for count 1, the statute says what it's going to be. It's just, this is what it is. And he doesn't have any discretion. He doesn't get to do something different from that. That's what he has to use.
Yes, Your Honor.
They're saying they want it.
Pre-sentence investigation report is ordered by the court as to counts 2 and 3. As to count 1, is there any reason why we cannot proceed to sentencing on this matter?
Your Honor, we would request an opportunity to ensure that our client is okay before we proceed to sentencing. It's my understanding that Charlie Adelson wasn't sentenced right away, and we're asking for the same courtesy.
Very well.
Okay, so normally the judge is saying, let's just do the sentencing right now. I mean, we all know what it is. It has to be a minimum of life without parole. So let's just do it. Why are we waiting? And he's ready to go. And they say, we need to make sure our client is okay. The defense lawyers say, give us a little time. And besides, you didn't sentence Charlie right away, so you should give us a little more time.
The court then will set a separate sentencing date,
which is what today is.
Go ahead.
I think she's talking to Harvey there. He's sitting behind her. Clearly, she's letting up a little bit since the jury's out of the room. She's learned there's not going to be a sentencing. Okay, we'll go ahead and pull that. Well, let me do this. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So we're going to move on to a couple of other videos. We're going to watch the victim impact statement. I don't know if we'll get both of them finished, both Dan Markel's dad and his mother, but we'll go ahead and look at those. We're leading up to what's about to happen, which is the sentencing of Donna Adelson. That's supposed to begin at 3 o'clock. And we know the floor, the minimum. We don't know the maximum. So I'm also going to try to answer a few of your questions. And I have a couple of polls. I'm wanting you to answer some questions too. Let's go ahead. I want to ask you what you think about start a poll. Okay. Was Donna really crying or was she faking? I guess I'll put it that way. And we'll do yes. She was upset for herself. We'll do faking. Yeah, she was faking. Okay, and we'll add an option of half and half, upset and exaggerating. Oh, I can't quite type all that. I'll do ampersand. They don't give you very many characters on this. Okay. I don't know if that's quite put it, but hopefully that'll give you a thought. I want to know what you were thinking. Gosh, I am blurry. I can see it over here. I have no idea why. I'll make myself smaller so I don't drive y'all crazy. Okay, here I am. Let's, all right, so thinking through what Donna, I want y'all's answer on that. I'm not going to say anything more on that topic yet. I want to know what y'all are thinking about how she was acting. We do know that the jurors remarked on how she acted, and one of them even said the reason he didn't want to be the foreperson was he didn't want to be in the position of reading that out and seeing her react like that. He was concerned about that. He said he didn't know the judge would end up reading it, so that didn't really happen anyway. He thought maybe he would have to read it, and he was very worried about that. So for that reason, he even had stayed away from even wanting to be the foreperson. So we know that they had to have been impacted by that. And I think one of the judge's concerns is you don't want jurors to feel like there's going to be such a reaction that they're made to feel guilty for doing what was their responsibility and job. At the same time, it is a job that carries a lot of weight and a lot of results and consequences for people. So there is simply truth to that as well. But I think the judge very much wanted to keep control and to make sure that the way things played out in the courtroom was kept appropriate. All right, so let's see. I'm looking for other questions in here before we get into Harvey's statement. He had a really good statement, I thought, so I definitely want to get to playing that. Jerry wants to know if I will be shocked if she says, Your Honor, I've decided I'm ready to testify. I will be shocked. I will be shocked. For those of you who watched the trial with us, you know that she debated long and hard. I mean, they reached the point where she was supposed to decide and they put it off, and then they reached another point and they put it off, and finally the judge is like, you have to decide. You've got 5 minutes. This is your case. You have to decide. She's like, I'm not ready to decide. And he's like, there's nothing different here about what's happening for you from any other defendant. What's happening for you is you have to make a choice. Every defendant does. And every defendant faces the fact that if they testify, there will be a consequence. And if they don't, there will be a consequence of that. It's just a choice you have to make. Go ahead. But she didn't seem to want to make it. Okay, so let's, we're going to remove that from the stage and add in, this is Dan Markel's father.
Please could tell us your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Phil Markel. I'm Danny's father. Judge Everett, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the impact of Donna Adelson's actions on my families and the families of so many others. While this victim impact statement is addressed to you, Your Honor, it is also intended for the Adelson family, Harvey, Charlie, Wendi, and particularly Donna. I would like them to understand and reflect on the deep and irreparable damage they have caused. The pain.
So notice that he put Wendi in the group. Notice that he didn't just say Donna. He didn't just say Donna and Charlie. He put Wendi in the group. Let's go back. I want you to hear that again.
Wendi, and particularly, it is also intended for the Adelson family, Harvey, Charlie, Wendi, and particularly Donna. I would like them to understand and reflect on the deep and irreparable damage they have caused. The pain.
So he included Wendi and he included Harvey in the group that caused deep and irreparable harm. He didn't just say Donna, he didn't just say Charlie, he included Wendi and he included Harvey. Now, obviously, neither of them has been charged. A lot of questions around whether either one of them ever will be charged, but thus far, no.
That they have caused my family is obvious and permanent. But they have also caused lifelong harm to their own immediate family and so many other families and children around. Donna's selfishness, cruelty, and complete disrespect for human life, along with that of her co-conspirators, have left families forever broken. Louis Rivera, his children have no father. Catherine Magbanawa and Sigfredo Garcia, their children have no parents. Charlie Adelson, his son, Roman, has no father. Rob Adelson and his wife and their 2 children have lost their uncle and grandparents. Shelley and Ian, my daughter, their 3 children, my grandchildren, are left without an uncle and are separated from their cousins. Of course, their heinous and callous actions have left me, Ruth, and Shelley without our Danny, and Ben and Lincoln without their father. For anyone
He is just laying out, cataloging for the judge the massive swath of destruction, which goes far beyond just Dan Markel. It reaches out to Dan Markel's family. It reaches out to the relationship they had with their grandkids. It reaches out to the relationship moving down from the grandkids and moving on to how the entire family interacts. Everything was disruptive for an enormous group of people. You can even reach down and talk about the people Charlie worked with, the people Harvey worked with, the people at the Adelson Institute. There are so many lives that were disrupted by what happened. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 5 people in prison for the murder of Dan Markel, a massive consequence of what's happening.
Commit such a cold-blooded, unprovoked act of murder is horrific. For Donna, someone who claims to care so much about Ben and Lincoln, her sun shines. Her actions are beyond comprehension. She has harmed forever the people she claims to have loved. In the Jewish custom, we have an expression to always wish others to live to 120 years of age. For Donna, I wish her to live to 120, alone in her jail cell. I wish that every day of her remaining days she thinks about the harm she has caused to so many, especially those 2 boys she claims to have loved so much. For these reasons, Your Honor, I ask the court sentence Donna Adelson to the maximum possible sentence. And my only short question to Donna, was it worth it? Respectfully, thank you.
So 2 huge things he ends with. The first, he wishes her well. He wishes her a long life, 120 years, but all spent in prison. For the rest of her life, she will spend it in prison, and there's no chance of parole. So no matter how long she lives, that in fact will be the consequence. Could there be an appeal? Sure, yes. But is it very likely to succeed? No, very small chance that it will succeed, very small chance that it would come back. And even if it did, all she's going to get is another trial. She's not going to magically walk away from this. So he's wished her a long life. And he's also asked her the question, was it worth it? Because obviously the consequences as intended by our society are high. They have to be, because we don't want people to do this. We're trying to deter it. We're trying to keep people from doing that. So definitely, this is exactly what we intend as a society. So so let's head back over to the poll and see what y'all thought. I'm going to end it. So if you have a vote, go ahead and stick it in quick. I see some numbers changing, so y'all are voting. Everyone vote last minute, and we'll move on to another poll next. Y'all are voting quick. I don't want to stop you from voting. I see Pascaline has a question. Let me add it to the screen. Why are they not on the same day? Pascaline asks, Pascaline is joining us from Paris, and she's asking the question, why wouldn't you have sentencing on the same day that you have the conviction? Like, why would you do it differently? Well, the reason it could have been done differently, and I do want to say too, it frankly really depends on, I'm going to change the layout just a little bit. It frankly depends on the state and the jurisdiction. And in this particular case, the judge was ready to do it right then and there. Let's just get it over with, get it done. But some states, they have a pre-sentencing process. They'll have a report that gets issued and talks about the person's life and how this will affect other people and looks into their past. Do they have any criminal history, mental health history, things like that. And he asked, do you want that for the 2 counts where it matters? They said, yes, they did. And they asked for a delay. They said their client, they needed to check on her because she was so obviously reacting emotionally, and they wanted to make sure, she was okay. And so they asked for a delay, and the judge gave that to him. It didn't have to happen, but that is the way it went. All right. So, but it's a good question because some states, it's right away. And in some states, there's a pretty long delay. It just depends. You may remember if you followed the Alec Murdaugh case. I mean, they sentenced him the very next day. They would have done it that night, except for the fact that it had gotten kind of late. So they moved straight on the very next day. All right. So let me head back over here. All right. I'm going to close that poll and let's see what your vote was. All right. So 40% of you, that was the largest single number, but not a majority. 40% of you thought that Donna was crying because she was upset for herself. 38% figure she was upset, but she was kind of exaggerating it also. And then 22% of you were flat out, she was faking. That was just all for drama and show. And so thank you everybody for voting. Those were your votes. And we'll do another poll in just a minute because I like getting your thoughts on what is happening. I want to go now. The 2 impact statements, I don't believe the judge will hear again from the Markels. I don't know whether he'll have any impact statements to consider today. I don't know whether he'll be looking at anybody from Donna's side, whether there will be people who will testify on her behalf. There may be, but he's starting pretty late in the day. So it sounds to me like he doesn't expect any kind of lengthy proceeding. He's going to keep it pretty short, move through it, and go ahead and reach his decision about those 2 counts and then impose the sentence, the mandatory sentence on the first one. He doesn't have a choice in that. That's the way it is. Okay, so let's take a listen. I'll remove that from the screen and add the one. This is Ruth Markel. This is Dan Markel's mother.
If you please can identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Ruth Mark. Sorry?
I'm worried you're going to trip.
Okay, I already did fall. My name is Ruth Markel.
You may give your impact statement, ma'am.
Thank you, Judge Everett. To the Honorable Judge Everett, my name is Ruth Markel. I am the mother of the late Dan Markel. I stand before you today to express the profound sadness and grief that Dan's family and I have endured since his tragic murder. We have lost a treasure. My son Dan's life was cut tragically short at 41 years old. For 11 years, we have been forced to a life filled with unimaginable pain and heartbreak. Dan's father, Phil, and his sister, Shelley, share in this unending sorrow. Dan was a devoted father, brother, and son. Dan's life was marked by his devotion to family, education, and community. He was a loving, caring, and inspiring person. His academic journey included studying politics and philosophy at Harvard University, earning a master's degree later in political theory from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and the Emmanuel College in Cambridge, and later going back to Harvard to get a law degree. Dan was a prolific scholar and did start, co-founded the influential Prof's blog. His energy, drive, and sociability greatly enriched the FSU College of Law. Dan's life was filled with passion, music, dance, sports, travel, and people.
One of the purposes of a statement by the victim's family at a time like this is to ground us in what actually happened, in the reality of what was lost and who was lost. And she does a beautiful job of explaining kind of who he was and what he was like and all of the things he had accomplished and how those vanished in an instant when a hitman walks to his window and shoots him in the head. All of that gone. And that's so important for the judge to remember, for the gallery and the people watching to remember, and for the defendant to remember.
All my son's accomplishments, however, I am most proud of the devoted father Danny was to his two sons, Benjamin and Lincoln. Dan was present, loving, and supportive, always putting his children's well-being first. He regularly attended the boys' daycares, reading with them. His office was filled with their drawings, and his home, his living room, filled with their toys. Dan was the boys' hero, and they have been forced to grow up without a father. Dan's murder has shattered our family and caused deep permanent pain. This was a particularly senseless crime, and the murder was particularly insensible. It was not revenge. Dan was a law-abiding and respectful citizen, an active father, and a living son. His life was devoted to teaching and helping others.
And that's such a good point. It really was senseless. After all, Wendi had a lot of custody. She got to see the kids a great deal. Donna was getting to see the kids. Nobody was standing in the way. And for all of Donna's argument that Dan Markel must have really liked her because, after all, he let her babysit the kids, isn't that an argument in the other direction, too, for how completely pointless all of this is? Because she was allowed even extra time with the kids. Why did it have to be that they had to be in Miami? Like, what was the reason behind this? It really was a waste. So many lives decimated for not a lot of even benefit for Donna Adelson.
The pain and suffering of Dan's murder goes well beyond other families too. That is why I wrote the book, The Unveiling, a mother's reflection on murder, grief, and trial life. In my unrelenting grief, I turned to advocacy to feel purpose and to help others with these tragic losses. I have found meaning and comfort to connect with others who want to serve justice. To all the community of journalists, TV programs, podcasters, Tallahassee communities, and the allies who have put their hearts in keeping Danny's story alive, we are full of thanks. To law enforcement and prosecutors, our gratitude is beyond for their dedicated, careful perseverance in seeking justice for Danny and our family. If Tallahassee is known for football, Tallahassee should be known for the prosecution and for law enforcement. They have done an outstanding job. These extraordinary efforts underscore the brutal truth of our family story. Danny's murder was orchestrated by his former mother-in-law, Donna Adelson, and other co-conspirators, and is a crime of cruelty. It is a murder of grief, a murder of selfishly prioritizing one's own desires over what is just or right. And at its core, this was a murder of convenience, so that one grandmother could live closer to her grandchildren. She killed their father and ripped the children from the other grandparents' lives. Donna Adelson's crimes against Dan began long before his murder. She belittled Dan in front of his children. She spread lies about it and contributed to a brutal separation between Dan and Wendi.
So I think she's making a really good point there, that the issue that she's on trial for is the murder of Dan Markel. But things began earlier because the prosecution did show really good evidence that there had been other occasions when she was trying to turn the boys and the young children and telling them that their dad was a dummy and that he was stupid because he was trying to separate them from her. Again, putting herself in the role basically of the parent as the one, the most important, and how they felt about her was more important than how they felt about their father. And what Ruth Markel is saying is that's the root here. That's the root of what's happening, is her belief that she is the one who ought to be primary in their lives, and her belief that Dan Markel should play no role at all. And that's so extreme because obviously she was still getting the role. She wasn't the primary role because she wasn't the parent.
Into the house, and Dan came home and he found that Wendi and the boys were gone with most of their belongings. He called this devastation Pearl Harbor. Donna's eagerness for Wendi to divorce Dan and to relocate to South Florida led her to increasingly devise desperate schemes. Despite these efforts, the court ruled that Wendi could not move the boys away from their loving father. Failing to achieve her goal through legal means, Donna finally resorted to orchestrating Dan's murder. She plotted, planned, and paid for his murder. Donna's crimes led to further devastation. Her middle son, Charlie, was convicted and sentenced to a life in prison for his role in facilitating Danny's murder for hire. Can you imagine a mother involving a son to complete a murder? Donna's eldest son, Rob, an honest and decent man, is estranged from the family, and her younger child, Wendi, has decided once again to relocate to another state. Her actions and those of her co-conspirators have caused children to lose their parents. Catherine McBanowitz, Freda Garcia, and Charlie Adelson, also convicted, are all convicted for life and have lost access to their children. Prior to her arrest, Donna's recorded phone calls with Charlie reveal their lack of a moral compass or capacity for self-reflection. She blames external forces for her family's curse. They're outside of her, but she is the curse, and lashes out.
What a strong statement. She is the curse. She blames other forces, external, other things, as if they were the curse, but really all of this was brought on by a choice that she made. Her belief that she should be primary in her grandchildren's lives, and to the extent that anyone in the way, including Dan Markel, should not be. And so what I find really interesting is how she is really focused in on Donna Adelson to a degree beyond what you heard. We played them in opposite order, but beyond what her ex-husband, Dan Markel's father, had done. He talked at the beginning to everyone involved as he believed it. He included Wendi, and he included the father, Harvey, Donna's husband. So that isn't, as you hear much more here, Ruth addressing Donna, Ruth seems to feel strongly about Donna's role.
Angrily at witnesses who took the brave step to testify. Her modus operandi has always been to run from Tallahassee and then to try to flee to Vietnam. For our family, there is no such prospect for escape. Danny's absence, and that leaves a hole at the center of our lives, no matter where we go. Yet Dan's murder was not enough for Donna. His death was not enough. Danny had to be fully erased from his beloved sons. The boy's last name was ever changed, an extraordinary decision to excise the Markel name from Phil's only grandsons who shared his last name. And after the first arrests were made, Donna didn't allow the Markel family to have access for over 6 years.
And that remained a point of contention. The fact that the Markels were shut out of the boys' lives. It wasn't just that the Adelson family ended up with kind of primary control with a little bit allowed for the other side. It's that was it. They never had any real contact. I think they referred to it during this sentencing, during their statements as, stilted. It was very orchestrated. It wasn't something where they were allowed to form and develop a relationship with the boys. And obviously, that was something that they truly wanted to do. And just so we are about 8 minutes out from when the sentencing hearing is supposed to begin. So we're talking about the lead up to the sentencing. The sentencing is supposed to begin at 3:00 Eastern. So we are leading up to that.
When there was a phenomenal Tallahassee advocacy group that passed the Markel Act. The passage of this bill was immediately followed by our first invitation to see the boys after the rest. The door only cracked open. Despite these efforts, we remain excluded from the boys' lives. We were not at their bar mitzvahs or graduations. We have extremely highly choreographed visits and communications. We only wait for the day that Benjamin and Lincoln will visit their father and his grave, and his father's history, and his grave in Toronto. We want nothing more. The facts of Dan's murder.
And that's a sad thing when you think about the fact that the boys were held back. They were not taken to the funeral. Now, they were little at the time. So a parent might make a decision that they didn't want their child going literally to the funeral, say to the graveyard, on the day of the funeral. Maybe they would make that decision. But at no point had they ever visited Canada. Had they ever visited the family? Had they ever visited the grave? Had they ever even seen it? And all of that is truly tragic. One of the many tragedies in what happened.
These murder are difficult to swallow. The experiences Phil, Shelley, and I have been forced to suffer are profound as homicide survivors and victims of the criminal system. The lives of Danny's two sons, our grandchildren, were forever turned upside down by this crime. Benjamin and Lincoln were only preschoolers when their father was murdered, and now they are forced to confront and try to understand the unthinkable crimes of murder and the Adelsons' involvement. Our lives will never return to normal. For those who loved Danny and for those who Danny loved, there is no escape from the wicked effects of what Donna Adelson set in motion, carried out, and paid for, and for many years enjoyed the aftermath of. Donna Adelson has caused immense devastation and an untimely, undeserved murder through her actions. While no trial or verdict can ever heal the profound wounds caused by Dan's murder, justice must be served.
And I see that the court scene has come up. We'll go ahead and let me remove that, and we will swap this in. This is what we are about to see is the sentencing of Donna Adelson. So I'm expecting that to show any minute. Let's see. Let's see what we can do about that. Okay. So what we are about to see is Donna Adelson's sentencing. We know for a fact, oh, and there she is. You can see Donna Adelson. She still seems upset. It's been a month and a month and a half, I guess. And as you can see, she's still upset. But who wouldn't be, right? She should be. That is exactly the purpose of what's about to happen. That is exactly why this is going on. All right, so what we've got right now is Donna Adelson waiting for sentencing. You can see her, she's in her prison uniform. She is required, I saw a question in the chat, is she required to be there? Yes, she has to be there for her sentencing, barring him having to remove her for some reason. Yes, I saw people ask if Harvey would be there. He is there, present, which to me suggests he probably will actually speak. That would be my guess, if he's bothered to be there. That he could have stayed away. And if he didn't, then I would think that's kind of the reason. Shirley wants to know who was the girl taking pictures with shorts on. I don't know the answer to that one. I don't know. And yes, I think Mavka has a good question. If Donna was wrongfully convicted, wouldn't she also act this way? I think she would. I think her reaction could have been upset for a host of reasons. It looked more tinged with kind of angry to me, but then perhaps if you were innocent, you would be outraged, right? So I guess that's still possible, but it seemed different to me. It seemed, there did seem to be an element of kind of making a point to it. I saw somebody, I wish I had captured it at the time, but someone said, remember how Donna acted during that very first hearing she had. And at one point, someone said something, she goes, oh my God. And she, just like she said at the sentencing. And the person said, well, it seems like she kind of believes that if she reacts, if she makes an outburst, people will believe her because she's so clearly dismissing it. And I think there is truth to that, to what's being said there. So got to be a hard day for Harvey, without question. Thank you, Liz. Much appreciated. Nina asked a really interesting question. Would you want Wendi to be charged? The kids already lost everyone and so many lives already destroyed. Would it be worth it? And this is my thought on it. I realize this could be a little bit of a controversial take on it, but this is kind of my thinking, is that the justice doesn't really depend on what you want to happen or even necessarily what is the best thing for people going outward. I think it really has to do with what is the right thing. If Wendi was involved in the murder of her ex-husband, then I think she should be punished for that to the full extent of the law. Actually, she said exactly that. She said that very thing when she was asked about that. She said that in the course of talking about when she was asked questions on cross-examination, when she testified at Donna's trial. They pointed out to her something she told the police. If somebody did this, even your family, don't you think they should pay? Shouldn't they be held accountable? And she said yes. And I think that's the answer. So here we begin.
Afternoon, everyone. You can see that.
I would describe Donna as looking more glum today. Would you agree with that? Put in your one word description or however many you want to use. So you can hear the judge coming in. We are waiting for sentencing now. And we don't know a lot about what exactly will happen and who will speak. Will Harvey speak? He's there. So my guess is yes. There isn't a lot of purpose for him speaking because it's a done deal and the judge is not going to pay any attention to what he said. For the same reason, there were some questions about should Donna speak? Well, a classic statement would be probably not if she doesn't have something really emotional to say to the judge. There's really no benefit to it. But the truth is, honestly, it probably doesn't matter. It probably, no matter what she does or says, I mean, I would imagine she'll make a short statement and say, just like Charlie did, I didn't do it. Don't look at me. It's not my fault. And so that's my guess.
A witness that was going to be giving a statement over Zoom this afternoon.
That's correct, Judge.
She does have an
There's
appeal.
one that is going to be attending on behalf of the state as well.
Yes, Your Honor, the Markel family will be appearing by Zoom, but they're relying on their statements previously made.
That's a good idea. Somebody said, let's do a poll on whether Donna will speak. We're not going to do one on whether she'll admit guilt because I think we all know the answer. But y'all go ahead and tell me what you think. Will Donna speak? Oh, we have something jumping out ahead that frankly is a surprise to me. So we'll let that go just a few minutes. Obviously, you have to vote quick because once we hit her speaking, we no longer know whether your vote was actually real or not. And Allison thinking that really the motive for everything was not Donna, but Wendi and a job that she had, as well as her wanting to avoid the trouble that might have been coming her way with what Dan was filing in the divorce proceedings, or that was over the custody proceedings. Okay, so y'all are voting pretty quick. I'm going to leave it open while y'all are voting so fast.
I found one of the witnesses.
Probably the gentleman appearing as our witness, Judge, his face.
Witnesses in this bedroom said that. I don't think that's what it said. So just the usual stuff happening beforehand. We are waiting. There's not a ton of suspense in this regard. We know the minimum. There is an unknown as to what the court will do with the other two charges, the conspiracy, the solicitation, that we don't know. And obviously, what attempt the defense
The
will.
number belongs to Ms.
You can tell her to rejoin.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they may be going to do the Markels maybe by Zoom. That's what it sounded like. They're trying to get it set up. Hey, A to Z has been a member for 10 months. That is awesome. We are glad to have you. We are having a members only tonight at 7 p.m. We're going to be playing a mystery game. So definitely, if you're a member, be sure to set your alarm. I'll be putting that up after we finish here.
Also on mute until it is time for you to speak, please.
Okay.
Here this afternoon for final disposition and sentencing in case number 2023 CF 3226, State versus Donna Adelson. Parties can make their appearances.
Georgia Kappelman for the state.
Joshua's on for the defense.
Jackie Colford on behalf of Mrs. Adelson.
Have the parties received their copies of the pre-sentence investigation report?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Judge.
Are there any objections that either party wishes to make to the pre-sentence investigation report?
No, sir. There are corrections that would need to be made, Judge.
What are the corrections?
Would you like me to stay in here at the lamp?
It's in there.
On page 1, they have the date of arrest as November 20th, 2023. And she was actually arrested on November the 13th of 2023.
Oops.
I'm going to take Ms. Kappelman, is there any
No,
challenge to those?
No, sir.
I will notate the copy then that will be filed with the clerk as November 13th of 2023. Go ahead.
On page number 5, there are several. The first place, near the top, it says wage, salary. And this was supposed to be her current employment that she had, and it said $1,000. She did not have employment where she made $1,000. She was not receiving any salaried income, so that should be 0.
Kappelman, do you wish to be heard concerning those?
No, Your Honor.
So none of this really makes a difference.
The wage salary as $0.00.
I mean, it should be accurate.
Underneath there, it says the number of jobs in the past 2 years, 1. She has had no jobs. She's been employed the majority of the 2 years.
Which part of page 5 are you referring to?
Well, that's on page 5, right underneath the wage.
So no jobs, no employment.
Correct, that should be 0.
Ms. Kappelman, do you wish to be heard?
No, sir.
Notate that there has not been any employment or 0. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Directly under there, it says months unemployed in the past 2 years, 0, and she's been unemployed for 2 years.
Well,
No objection.
so you're asking for that to be 24 months.
Correct.
I'm surprised they didn't have all this done in advance.
Go ahead.
There are 2 typographical errors in the remarks section. The second line from the top in the remarks says history, comma, she. I believe that's supposed to say the defendant.
Give me one moment, I'm finding it.
Just minor things they're talking about here, none of which will make a difference in the sentence. Just getting the report correct. And we'll stop it for just a second. You can hear what the report includes. It's just very basic stuff. Where did she work? How much did she make? Did she have a criminal history?
You said history is the first word leading into the
History is
correction.
right next to the word she. You see that's on the second line down. It says remarks, and then the word right under there on my copy says history, comma, she.
Yes.
It should be the.
Ms. Kappelman.
No objection.
Go ahead.
And then in the same paragraph, 4 lines down to the far right, it said who had fallen in. That should be ill, I-L-L.
No objection.
A lot of little errors in this. LLH, I could not agree with you more. The judge does not want to see her again. He doesn't want to see this case again.
Go ahead, Ms. Wolford.
Yes, sir. Going down under the financial status to where it says estimated total debts, in the second line, it says a second mortgage was taken out to pay for their home. That should say legal expenses, not home.
No objection.
Oh, so they took out a second mortgage to pay legal expenses, which have got to be really, really high. I'm surprised, though, as much money as they were said to have in their accounts at Charlie's trial. They didn't put that in Donna's trial, but they had a large amount.
Yes, sir. The same section where it states remarks, 3 lines down, it says husband's dental practice. That's incorrect. The dental practice was not providing income prior to her arrest. She was only receiving Social Security assistance.
So you're just asking husband's dental practice to be scratched through.
That's correct. The only income was, they listed Social Security, but they listed both.
No objection.
Well, anything else?
On page 7, Your Honor, about halfway down the page, it has the remarks section. And if you go 1, 2, 3 lines from the bottom where it's listing grandchildren, On the right, it has a child's name, 14, and then it says a female, 7. That's actually a male.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, any other objections?
Not from the defense.
The court has reviewed the PSI report. And at this time, I will direct the clerk to file it as a part of the record. Ms. Kappelman, do you have any other witnesses or evidence that you wish to present as a part of your presentation today?
I have some documentation regarding cost of prosecution, Judge. Would you like that at this time?
Yes.
The state has put together a summary page and a thumb drive. We are requesting $723,923.68 in restitution. Defense advised that they want a supporting documentation regarding this request, which is contained on this thumb drive. They're just receiving it today. So has not had opportunity to review it. I think at this time the parties are in agreement to ask Your Honor to order cost of prosecution and reserve regarding the amount, and we'll see if we can reach an agreement regarding the amount.
Very well.
So that's one item that's in dispute for today. Another issue, Judge, is the score sheet. I've prepared 2 score sheets. May I approach again?
You may.
First includes death points, bringing the lowest permissible prison sentence in months to 172.5. The second does not include the death points, bringing the lowest permissible prison sentence in months to 82.5.
So she's
Brought to my attention yesterday that the defense objects to the inclusion of the death points. The limited research that I've had an opportunity to do suggests that they should be included if the death was a direct result of the crime. I believe it was. The defense wants to argue otherwise, so whichever score sheet Your Honor chooses to go with, they're both provided there for you. The state is requesting, are you ready for me to argue what I want for sentence? Okay.
Go ahead.
Obviously life on count 1, Judge. We would ask for 30 years consecutive to count 1 on count 2, and 30 years concurrent to count 2, but also consecutive to count 1 on count 3. I do not have any additional testimony or other evidence to provide, Your Honor.
We've had this issue of the death points being attached to the non-homicide offenses come up in other cases. Certainly the death points would attach if there were an offense that were being scored, but the first-degree murder is not being scored on the score sheet. What would be the basis, Ms. Kappelman?
That the death resulted from the conspiracy. It wasn't just a conspiracy without a death. It was a conspiracy that directly resulted in a death, hence the death points are appropriate.
What is the defense's argument concerning the score sheet?
I'll do my best, Your Honor, to know the weather for the last week.
So here's what they're talking about. They're talking about just what exactly will go into the maximum amount that he can possibly award for this particular crime. They're talking about the conspiracy right now. And there are various issues, including the fact that it included a murder, that there was a death involved, and they're arguing over whether or not that should increase the amount. In the end, does it matter in that she's serving life in prison without parole? No, but they want to get it right. And remember, if there ever were to be a situation where on appeal, this got reversed on some one charge, the other charges would still be in place and would still cover. So that's one of the reasons they go to all this trouble to make sure each and every sentence is accurate under the law. And a lot of times, even if there's a reversal on appeal, it might be just to come back and say, oh, well, the maximum amount for this secondary charge was 60 months instead of 82. And the judge will say, okay, well then 60 months in addition to life in prison. So often an appeal win doesn't mean a complete appeal win.
It's the same argument that was made on behalf of Dr. Adelson post-conviction. Your Honor granted the correction of the score sheet. Solicitation and conspiracy do not require an actual death. And I'll just rely on the same cases that were relied on by Dr. Adelson. State versus Johnson, 561 Southern 2nd, 1321. The crime, quote from that case, the crime of solicitation is completed when the actor, with intent to do so, has enticed or encouraged a victim to commit a crime. The crime need not be completed. And then in Becky v. State, 423 Southern 2nd, 417, second DCA, crime of conspiracy consists of two necessary elements: an agreement, 1, and 2, an intention to commit the offense. Once the intent is formed and the agreement is made, the conspiracy is complete. Just like Your Honor did in Charlie Adelson's case, by order that was not opposed by the Attorney General's office.
She looks like she isn't even here, doesn't she? She looks completely zoned out, like emotionally overwhelmed. I don't think she's heard a word since she entered the courtroom.
I believe that order is dated January 24th, 2025. Your Honor agreed with that position and ordered the state to prepare a corrected score sheet without deadline points.
Keppelman, my memory of this is in line with the defense position. Certainly, if the state wishes to take any appeal concerning the score sheet, that is your choice.
Understood, Judge.
Death points will not be added to the score sheet that is signed by the court. Is the defense ready to proceed with its presentation?
Yes, Judge.
You may
And
proceed.
that was, by the way, a very safe call because it, in the end, won't change the result for Donna Adelson, but there's no reversing it on appeal. There's no reason for anybody to appeal it.
Would you like me here or at the podium?
You may remain at the table or you can come to the lectern, whichever.
Okay, thank you, Judge. I guess we would start with the witnesses that we have. The one who's standing by on Zoom is Dr. Ben Graber, who would like to make a statement on behalf of Mrs. Adelson.
Dr. Graber, if you at this time can please turn on your microphone. Please raise your right hand, sir. Dr. Graber, if you can raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to provide today will be the truth? I believe you have a volume problem, Dr. Graber. I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
So they're trying to do something through Zoom, it sounds like, but they can't hear, nor can we.
I guess just so I can test that we do have proper audio, Dr. Graber, before you get started, Mr. Markel, if you can turn on your microphone and say 1, 2, 3 for me so I can test this audio.
Good point, Janice. Good point. Maybe she doesn't want to hear it.
All right, he's not coming through either. Time to troubleshoot.
So they're trying to get the audio set up and working. The defense is trying to present some witnesses about the sentencing for Donna Adelson. And the reason that they care is, again, on appeal, if they can possibly, is that someone's, I guess that's someone in the courtroom having their phone ring.
Dr. Graber, if you can say 1, 2, 3 while I test this equipment. All right, I can hear you now, but we can't get them over the loudspeaker. At least someone must have switched the audio settings.
So the defense is trying to make a presentation here. They want to be able to say she should get fewer years and to get the judge.
My back's fine, it's, the witnesses need to be heard.
And if they want an issue on appeal, maybe it would make a difference. Probably not. Almost
Thank you,
certainly
Mr.
not.
Markel, I'm gonna place you back on mute at this point.
So Mr. Markel is there, but on Zoom, apparently. I don't know if he'll speak again. We heard him speak as we did the lead up, talking about what he had said
Dr. Graber, try to talk for me one more time.
in his first statement.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, there you go. You can hear him. Well, good.
Judge and a Radio Shack, man, all in one. All right.
Working?
It is. Let me swear you in again, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today will be the truth?
I do.
You can lower your head. If you're examining the witness, or is he reading a statement?
He's gonna present a statement, Judge.
Dr. Graber, you may proceed at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak on behalf of Donna Adelson. If I can, let me just brief description of who I am, my background. I've been a friend of the Adelson family since 1979. The first 20 years I knew them, we were actively engaged in many activities. And the last 20 years, I haven't seen them that much until this trial became apparent to me. And my background is I'm a medical doctor practicing obstetrics and gynecology, 45 years here in Florida.
She's listening a little.
Legislature from 1988 to 96, representing Coral Springs and parts of Broward County. I was the county commissioner in Broward County and mayor of Broward County for 1 year in 2006. Also a professor at the University of Florida Medical School and the University of Miami Medical School in clinical.
Sounds like a distinguished friend, although how can you be mayor for only a year? That is really a short term.
And I'm here to speak today on behalf of Donna Adelson, the person I've known for a great deal of time. Hi Donna, just want to say hi. I'm sorry I can't be there to hug you. And I'm sorry we didn't get to have that dinner after your trial was over. But I'm here to, on your behalf, to let you know that you have friends, and I believe in you. Let me say that, Tom, I never thought we'd be here at this situation when I first met you.
I bet not.
Total shock to me and to our families. And it's a tragedy for me to have to be here to talk about this. I feel very bad for your family, for the Markel family, for the tragedy everyone's experiencing. To me, I've been following this for 2 years. It appears to be a dissolution of two families. My background is similar in many ways to both families. Like Ruth Markel, I'm the son.
Did you see her nod at that when he said the dissolution? It appears to be the dissolution of two families, and she nodded because it truly is. But up until now, I haven't really seen her sort of acknowledge that. She's very much interacting with this particular person, Dr. Graber, who's speaking on her behalf. He said, I never really expected to be here. I wish I could be there to hug you in person, and I believe in you. But he's also said he's sorry for the tragedy, and he's addressing all families and the dissolution.
I actually was born in Germany, a displaced persons camp, came to the United States at the age of 18 months. So like the boys, Lincoln and Benjamin, I don't have a lot of recollection from the first beginnings of my time in the United States, but they don't have the recollection of their father, which is very sad to me. But they do have families, and I had family. And we have to learn a great deal from our tragedies how to come back into life. My distress is not just for Donna and the Adelsons, but for the Markels as well, and especially for 3 generations of each family, which I see in tragic downward swing. And yet, I did meet Lincoln and Benjamin at the bar mitzvah last year, and I got to meet those two boys, wonderful boys. Unfortunately, I never got to meet Dan Markel, but I have read many of his articles. Very impressive, very talented man who made some very good points about the law and about compassion in the law, which he felt could be improved. And I agree with that. So part of what I'd like to say today is basically that I do believe that Donna is a victim of natural circumstance, but has been actively exploited by parties involved in this case. I believe she was exploited by her son. Knowing Donna, who was the youngest child in her family, and knowing her mother, how close she was with her mother, and understanding their love and need for family, it makes no sense to me that she would pursue an activity that will destroy two families like it has. However, having known her son and some of his issues, I believe Donna, in her own naive way, trying to be a loving mother, is subdued by guilt, by silence, by denial, and perhaps even active exploitation, and used for activities she had no part of. So I believe she's innocent on all three counts, even though she was found guilty on all three counts. Part of my understanding is also that the victims here are both families, and to watch the hate and distress and the vengeance I see is a terrible thing to look at. As Holocaust survivors, you'd think we would understand that better, how damaging it is to families. I would have to say, my background, I grew up in the Bronx, the public school system. I actually was at Queens College when Donna was there, but I didn't know her. She graduated a year after I did. My wife, Sandy, graduated from Queens College as well. And in Coral Springs, we met up after being there a while, new young families, professionals trying to build a life, having children, building the community, which we did. So to see this situation occur, to me, is devastating in many aspects. As a legislator, I can tell you that we see things in law. Even though I'm a doctor and I was chairman of healthcare, I was a Democrat, majority leader, and I sat on the Judiciary Committee for 2 years, and understand the laws. Even wrote some of the sentencing guidelines and participated in passing them at that time. And I learned over the years that I had the privilege of passing many laws, because I was a leader and was able to work both sides. So many of my laws exist in the books. I get calls from judges periodically asking me about the intent of the law, and I wrote it because they have a case, and it's come down to what did you intend to happen in this law? And they would ask my opinion.
You intent, that's a hard question.
Information. So I'd like to look a little bit about the intent of the judicial guidelines for sentencing. I think the life without parole is a very harsh sentence. And that was not the intent, was to punish domestic cases with that, but to hit drug dealers and organized.
Wow. Wow. I am really surprised by this. So this is someone with a legislative background, and he's saying when we pass this, we didn't intend for life without parole to apply to people like Donna Adelson, to apply to domestic cases. We thought in our heads we were talking about drug dealers, and we were ready to put them away for life, but we didn't mean people like Donna Adelson. I've never seen anything like this. Very interesting. There's not anything the judge can do about it. He's maybe speaking to the public, but this is not something that the judge can fix because it is the law.
Crime and dangerous to the public. But I think it's been switched over to be used in conspiracy theories against the average citizen, which is not the intent of the law, in my opinion. Second of all, I think that it's unfortunate that this case has gone into so many new victims. And we've already, you have victims who have been found guilty of murder, two have committed the murder, maybe one.
Interesting. He calls them victims. He's calling all the defendants victims.
Further conspiracy theories, and I would believe that I would suggest that needs to be reviewed by the legislature. That's my opinion. Now, in this case,
Dr. Graber, before you continue, is this being offered as character? Because he is not an expert on the law.
He's not an expert, and it's not relevant. There's nothing about it that can change what the judge is going to do.
Very well. You may continue, Doctor.
yes, that's my opinion from my background. It's not, I'm not giving a professional opinion. I'm giving my personal opinion from experience. What I'm asking the court today is, to me, the court, the judicial system, the power of the judicial system is in the judge. And it is the judge who is the presenter of a safety net for the public. To show some compassion on the cold written law, with every box checked off, shows no compassion. Where does the compassion come from? It should come from the judge, it should come from the jury. And I think that maybe that's something we have to consider.
He's saying that if I understood that right, he's saying the compassion should have come from the jury, not from the judge, and it didn't. So again, the judge's hands are tied. I don't really see how this helps the judge any with making any sort of a different decision. Do I think it would have made an impact anyway? No, but I don't think it's helpful.
So at this point, what I'm saying is that I believe Donna Adelson was a 5-star mother, did everything she could do for her kids, for her family, for her community. She has no bad intentions. She's not a leader. She's a baby in her family. She's always been a follower. Yes, she makes noise and she complains, but that's not her behavior. This is not her profile. So I understand that nothing can be changed, but I want to put on record that I believe she is innocent of these 3 counts, and we believe her. With that, I would have to say, sometimes bad things happen to good people. And I think this is one of those cases. It's unfortunate. For the families, I would beg them, think about the 2 boys. Dad's not here, but a piece of him is here, and those 2 boys. And their future, they're both teenagers now. Their future depends a lot on what's going on here, and how they're going to be perceived in the future, and how they will interpret the future based on this. So I think it's time for some compassion, some understanding, some forgiving. Perhaps it's time to take a step back and let everyone heal from this process. With that, I say to you, Donna, Daniel and I love you. We support you and the family, and we hope for you the best. God bless you. And Your Honor, thank you for letting me speak.
Let's have an examination for the witness.
Okay. I would just like to say that having watched this judge through 2 complete trials, this is the wrong person, the wrong statement for this particular judge. It is going to infuriate him. It's going to infuriate him because of the fact that it addresses something he can do nothing about, suggests that the law itself is unfair. All he's going to be doing is applying it. And granted, he's talking about the conspiracy theory as opposed to the murder theory. But there's the statement that bad things happen to good people. The judge is just going to be infuriated by that. He is going to immediately say, that's not how we make decisions here. And I think he's going to, I don't think this is going to appeal to him. I did think it started off really good with the discussion about the impact on 2 families, the dissolution of 2 families. And I thought that was really effective. But then I think the part about the legislation, about the difference between domestic and drug and how there should be a harsher penalty for drug and less for domestic, I just don't think that's going to appeal to this particular judge.
No, Judge.
Does the state have an examination for the witness?
No, sir.
Dr. Graber, you can remain on the Zoom. I would just ask you to mute yourself at this point.
Thank you.
Let's have any other witnesses to present or evidence.
Yes, Judge, we have Rick Chagrin, who's present, who would like to make a brief.
He testified at trial. We're shattering it in. Oh, he's in person.
Please raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today will be the truth?
I do.
You can lower your hand. You may direct the witness or you may give a statement.
You can state your full name, please.
My name is Richard Gordon Chagrin.
And have you prepared a statement here today?
Yes, I have.
You give that to the court at this time.
This on behalf of myself and my wife Susan Brotman, an attorney at law. We have known Donna Adelson for over 35 years. She's been a dear friend and travel companion, and we are still in shock of her current circumstances. We know her to be a loving parent, wife, and grandparent. We stand behind her claim of innocence. We feel the trial was held in a county where there's been a lot of bad and inaccurate negative publicity, therefore not allowing a fair trial. We contend if a change of venue was granted, she would have been found not guilty. We are hopeful she will be relocated to South Florida, where she can pursue all legal remedies available. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay.
These are character statements or quibbling about the evidence and the rulings? The
It's
full
character,
version.
Judge, they're here to talk about their friendship and time, thank you.
Any witness examination for Mr. Chagrin?
Scott?
No, Your Honor.
You may be seated.
Absolutely not. So I'm telling you, the judge is not liking any of this. Like, he came up and made that this wasn't a fair trial and there should have been a change of venue. Well, the judge ruled against that. The judge may be wrong. There may be a decision on appeal that the judge was wrong, that the trial should have been moved to Miami, but I doubt that very seriously. But in any event, that's not really what the witnesses are supposed to be doing. The ones who are coming to talk about and make the statements are just like the judge keeps asking, is this a character statement? What does there should be a change of venue have to do with Donna's character? That's what you're supposed to be talking to me about. And instead, you're talking about my legal rulings as if this were a legal argument. And it isn't, it not only isn't the right place to do it, but it's not going to help.
Any other witnesses?
We did provide to the court, if you received your copy, Judge, some very short letters that were written as character support on behalf of Mrs. Adelson, if I may go through those at this time.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The first letter that was submitted to the court was by Annie Cunningham and Ronald Gutterson, who testified at trial. They say, we are writing this letter to restate our knowledge and feelings regarding Donna Adelson. We have known Donna since 2009 and consider her to be our dearest friend. Donna is a kind, caring, loving person. She was always concerned with the welfare of others. She is not the monster portrayed by the media. Donna is incapable of threatening or harming anyone. Donna is almost 76 years old and in frail health after almost 2 years of incarceration. We will always believe her to be innocent and ask the court to take these factors into consideration when deciding Donna's sentence. Next, we submitted to the court was one of her longtime friends, Ruth Rosenberg, who wrote, I immigrated to the USA from Israel when I was 1 month shy of 12. I lived in Israel in a town of 5,000 inhabitants where my family knew almost everyone and came to New York City, Queens, with a population of close to 8 million residents. To say it was a culture shock is an understatement. I didn't speak any English and physically looked like an underdeveloped child in comparison to the American girls my age. I entered the 7th grade in September, not knowing any English, the quote stranger in school. For several months, I sat by myself at lunchtime in the cafeteria, staring at the next table, where Donna and a group of her friends were conversing, laughing, and having a nice time. One day, Donna walked over to my table and asked me if I would like to join them, and of course, I said yes, please. That kind gesture started a 62-plus year friendship. She invited me to her house to meet her family, and over time, we became like sisters. I can recall several instances where Donna helped me obtain a job so I can help my parents financially. She introduced me to a family in a bungalow colony in the Catskills who needed a mother's helper for their daughters in the summer of '66. The money I earned helped my parents pay for the closing costs on their house. The following summer, she got me a job as a counselor at Camp Allegra in the Berkshires. When I had to decide on a career path, I consulted with Harvey and Donna about applying to dental school as my college advisor had recommended. Later that year, I was chosen to be the maid of honor at their wedding. We remained close friends throughout the years, even though we lived more than 1,000 miles apart. Our families visited each other periodically, making sure that our children and grandchildren got to know each other. We attended life cycle events of our children, bat and bar mitzvahs, weddings, special birthdays, etc., and now our grandchildren's. Donna has always been a kind-hearted, generous, loving, and caring. She is one of my best friends, and I will forever remember and appreciate how she helped me with English while I helped her with math in Parsons Junior High School, and remained loyal through these 62-plus years. The situation she is in today is unimaginable to me. That is not the person I know and love.
Interesting.
We also submitted
Unimaginable, not the person I know and love. Didn't really say, I believe she's innocent. It's just unimaginable, which does seem to me to be kind of different than just, I don't think she did it. But this fits the purpose of what the statement is supposed to be about. This person talked about Donna's character over a long period of time, 62 years of friendship, and that is what the judge is supposed to be hearing about.
a letter from Ron Ellis to the court. My name is Ron Ellis, and I have had the privilege of knowing Donna Adelson for more than 30 years. I am writing to you in hope of offering some perspective on the woman I have come to know so well over the course of our long friendship. Donna has been a steady and caring presence in my life. When my stepson passed away 11 years ago at the age of 34, Donna was there for me in ways I will never forget. She sat with me in my grief, listened when I needed to talk, and offered comfort when I felt overwhelmed. That kindness and empathy is the Donna I know. Someone who shows up for her friends and offers strength in their darkest moments. Over the years, I have seen Donna's compassion extend beyond just me. She has been a devoted mother, a loyal friend, and someone who consistently tried to bring warmth and generosity to those around her. I understand fully the gravity of the situation before the court, but I hope that when you consider Donna's sentence, you will also weigh the years of kindness, care, and humanity she has shown to others. I believe that Donna still has the ability to contribute positively, even under these circumstances, and that she is capable of reflection and growth. I respectfully ask that you take these qualities into account when you make your decision. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Ron Ellis. And then a brief letter from Marion and Tim Schaffman. She writes, we have known Donna for over 50 years, and although we live far apart and have seen her often over the years, we wanted to share with you our impressions of the lovely person we have known. Donna has always been a loving, kind mother and wife, and also an exemplary daughter to her parents, who often stayed with their family. We have never heard her utter a negative word about anyone, and had tremendous pride in every member of her family. She retained many friends from her childhood and developed long, satisfying friendships with the new people she met throughout each stage of her life. Donna was always intelligent, charismatic, and sensitive to everyone. She always listened to anyone's problems and offered a helping hand when she could. Most notably, her genuine concern over our and others' health issues was truly appreciated. As you can see, it is very difficult for us to view her as anybody other than the sweet, caring person we knew. Sincerely, Marianne and Ted Schaffman. Next is a letter from Jessica Ussery. Dear Judge Everett, my name is Jessica Ussery, and I am writing this letter to express my personal experiences and knowledge of Donna Adelson's character. Donna and I share a beloved grandson, Roman Harvey Adelson, born in 2017. My first memory of Donna is a video made and shared on Mother's Day 2017. Charlie Adelson surprised his mom with the news that he and my daughter, Brianna, were expecting a baby. It warmed my heart to watch Donna's genuine excitement and happiness caught on video. Our families began spending time together as events and celebrations took place. I recall Donna being warm and welcoming. As I got to know her more, there was no doubt in my mind that she was a loving and devoted wife, mother, and grandmother. Roman's birth was a scheduled cesarean section on December the 5th. On that day, I was overcome with mixed emotions of excitement and fear. A family awaited Roman's birth at the hospital during unnerving procedure. Donna was affectionate and compassionate, as I was visibly anxious and emotional. I will always remember how she reassured and calmed me that day. We shared tears of joy and the hugs when a beautiful and healthy boy came into this world. Donna was caring and supportive of Bree as a new mom. I have many fond memories of time spent with the Adelsons. Although Charlie and Bree were no longer a couple beyond Roman's first year, we all remain close. Donna has been kind, thoughtful, loving, and generous. Thank you sincerely for taking the time to read the letter, Jessica Goosery.
So we're now hearing from a series of letters of people who have known Donna Adelson for years. And the point of what they're doing is to tell the judge about her character, to say that she was a nice person, that she was a good friend, that she did things that were good and kind, and then in hopes that that will influence the judge as he makes a decision about how to sentence on the conspiracy and the solicitation. The actual murder has an already known statutory requirement.
And then a short letter to whom it may concern. I've worked at Adelson Institute for Aesthetic and Implant Dentistry from October 3rd, 2011 to September of 2022. During my time of working there, I had the opportunity to experience the beautiful person that Donna Adelson is. Through my time of working often side by side with her, I've witnessed her grace and ability to diffuse upset patients. She is incredible with having compassion for others and is truly one of the sweetest people I know. She's so supportive and understanding when it comes to her employees. When an elderly person comes in as a patient, she always made sure they had assistance, whether needing help filling out forms or even opening the reception door for them. She always jumped at the opportunity to be kind and helpful. I witnessed this and I know it was sincere. I still use what I've learned from her and apply it while I'm at work every day. I recognize the gravity of the situation and understand the seriousness of the legal process, but I respectfully ask that you consider the positive qualities that define her. Sincerely, Erica Johnson. And then the last letter that we submitted from was Attorney Gary Cohn. He said, my name is Gary Cohen. I've been a member in good standing at the Florida Bar since 1980. I have known Donna and Harvey Adelson as personal friends and personal counsel for almost 40 years. Harvey was also my dentist for most of those years. I have been in the Adelson house, and they have been in mine numerous times over the years since their children were little ones. My wife and I have socialized with Harvey and Donna at dinners, blessed events such as bar and bat mitzvahs, and weddings, birthdays, and many other occasions. I've also traveled with them, including a wonderful trip to Africa with two of my sons several years ago. I therefore have had a unique opportunity to observe Donna under many circumstances. In all the time I have known her, I have literally never heard Donna raise her voice, lose her temper, act inappropriately, or treat anyone with less than full respect, and almost always with a smile on her face. I have never heard a bad word said about Donna from any other friend or person in my presence. She has always been an amazing mother to her children, and she and Harvey have had the most loving marriage that can be imagined. While I cannot comment on any of the facts of this case or any of the alleged events, I can say that the Donna I know is the last person I would ever think of when it comes to what has been this utterly horrible crime, dealing with the death of Dan Markel. Being a trial lawyer for 45 years, I fully believe in the jury system and understand that a jury has spoken. However, the woman I've known so well for so long also needs to be understood as the wonderful wife, mother, grandmother, and friend that she has been known to me. I only hope that this information can be of use to the court when it comes to the sentencing of Donna Adelson. Gary Cohen.
One thing you can't help but notice is what a distinction this is between the person portrayed at trial and the evidence presented at trial, and the person that the jury believed Donna Adelson was, and the person all of these friends are talking about, including friends who have known her as long as 62 years. Really stark contrast between the two. But I don't think the judge will be moved by it, but we will see.
At this time, I believe that Mrs. Adelson's husband, Harvey Adelson, would like to address the court.
Harvey will talk.
Do you
Here
wish
he
to
comes.
enter these letters into evidence?
Yes, Judge.
Does the state have any objections? They will be composite defense 1 for sentencing.
Thank you, Judge.
Dr. Adelson, please raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
You can lower your hand. You may speak.
Thank you, Judge, and respected officers of the court for allowing me to speak. I have been Donna Adelson's husband for over 50 years. My wife sacrificed everything so that she could pour her heart and soul into our children, our grandchildren, and our marriage. This summer was our 54th wedding anniversary, and I had to spend it without her, hand in mind. She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong. I have listened, watched, and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial, and I could not help but scream in my mind by the witnesses that were brought forward by the prosecution who told outright lies. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. Danny's parents contend that they have never
gonna
seen
stop
their
him soon.
grandchild. But for years they say they've never seen her. But Wendi has shared with me pictures and videos and letters from their visits. They have suffered immensely at the loss of their son, but they also contend to tell lies to the court about our
Whoa.
grandchildren. Donna has always been a loving and caring wife and is innocent of the charges. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided.
What? Wait, okay. So he just said, unless I misunderstood, that the Markels told lies to the court. Now, of course, the Markels actually only spoke in terms of the sentencing. They made their statements for purposes of a victim impact. But so he's saying that witnesses lied to the court, that the Markels lied to the court, and he just said that the judge and jury were biased. The judge and jury were biased. Totally within his right to have the opinion that he believes the judge was not fair to his wife. He is entitled to that opinion. But just think of where we are right now. We're sitting in a courtroom talking to the person who's going to sentence his wife. Is it helpful to say you were biased? I mean, is that going to accomplish anything or get him anywhere? It's not. So I can't believe he just said that. I'm surprised the judge is allowing it to go on, because the judge, as you know, pulls up things rather quickly.
News pieces and
Before you
social
continue,
media.
Doctor,
Oh, look.
Ms. Fulford, this has nothing to do with the character of the defendant or the sentence.
Okay, that was, I called it, did I not? Yeah, he's immediately like, what does this have to do with character?
Go ahead.
She's saying, may I have just a moment? So she wants to talk to him to say, okay, let me look through here. I'm surprised actually that wasn't done in advance too, but we'll cross out these, not this paragraph. I probably can't say this. Let's focus on Donna was a loving and wonderful wife, 50 years, grandmother, cared about everybody. Let's focus on that, not telling the judge that he's biased, as was the jury. And his statement, I didn't know you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. Wow. This is opposite of calculated to help right here. This is something that is instead calculated to really anger the judge. Again, is it going to make a difference? No, I don't think so. But I can't believe, that this is happening. Oh, they're looking through it together. Like, can he say this and that? Because he had, pages of judge unfair, jury unfair, this witness lied, that witness lied. They're like, okay, probably can't say this and cross out that. That's what they're working on right now, the two attorneys. And the judge is, rightfully saying that this is not what the purpose of the impact statement is. So they're saying, well, I want you to say this and then sit down, okay?
Donna did not participate in the heinous acts that she was convicted of doing. You are sending an innocent woman to prison. You have taken my wife and you have taken my life as well. And for what? This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong.
You have an examination for Dr. Adelson.
No, Your Honor.
No, Judge.
Any other witness statements that you wish to give?
I don't believe so, just one second.
So Harvey letting the court have it and would have done more had the court not pulled him up and had the attorneys not said, let's focus on just this, which even so,
Any further witnesses, Judge, but Mrs. Adelson has decided she would like to make an unsworn statement to the court.
okay. So our vote was 61% thought that she would not speak, 39% thought that she would speak. So turns out she's going to speak. So there you go.
All of the witnesses will be sworn this afternoon if she wishes to speak.
She wants to speak unsworn.
Confirms that the defendant has the right to make an unsworn statement prior to sentencing. The court, Rule 3.720B states the court shall entertain submissions of evidence by the parties that are relevant to the sentence. A number of cases, Your Honor, that have interpreted this, especially in a capital case, as the defendant having a right to make an unsworn statement. This is a capital.
Please give the citations.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, okay, we're arguing over whether she has to be sworn
First is
to tell the truth.
Smith versus State, 268 Southern 3rd, 831, from the first DCA in 2019. You want me to continue, Your Honor?
Give me one moment.
Yes, sir.
Bringing up my Westlaw. Give the citation again.
Sure.
So there,
268
Oh.
Southern 3rd, 831.
so why would she not want to be under oath, right? The judge is like, well, everyone today is going to be under oath, so she needs to testify under oath. I can think of a couple of reasons she might not want to be under oath. One, the judge has been giving the prosecution the opportunity to cross-examine. Maybe they don't want that. Maybe they're afraid she would say something that might hurt her chances on appeal. But it does look funny, right? if you won't say whatever you have to say to the court under as a sworn witness, then of course maybe the court should take it with a grain of salt. But I doubt. Anyway, we'll see what happens with this. They're presenting case law to the judge. He's going to look it up. So they've given him a case site and said, okay, take a look at that and tell us what you think, Judge. Since they're just sitting there, I'll skip ahead. So the judge is looking.
Cited.
Okay. Seems like they start talking again.
Pinpoint site are you referring to in the case?
So these cases are very long with teeny little type. They want to know where. Where in this should I look?
46. This one.
Okay.
It's Hill versus State.
I'll let it play through.
246 Southern 3rd, 392 for the 4th District Court of Appeal.
One moment.
Yes, sir.
246 Southern 3rd, what's the last part?
392.
So he's looking up, he's trying to find this case that they believe says that she is entitled, has the right.
Case where it does state the defendant has a right to make an unsworn statement.
Okay.
We will proceed.
Thank you.
He's saying, you're right.
Would you like Mrs. Adelson at the lectern or here?
She can remain at council table.
Thank you, I'm going to move the microphone.
We are about to hear from Donna for the first time in the trial since She testified a few times at hearings, but not at trial.
Okay. Is this loud enough, Judge?
I can hear you.
Thank you for letting me speak. My son-in-law, Dan Markel, was a fine and decent man. He was well-educated and passionate about his career. He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father. On July 18th, 2014, his car was followed, leaving his home. It should have been just like any other day, an ordinary day in the life of Ben and Lincoln's father, but it wasn't. He didn't know when he left his boys off at daycare that would be the last time he would see them, and the last time they would see him. He didn't know when he went to the gym afterwards that would be the last time he would exercise. And he didn't know when he drove home that his life would end within minutes. Danny wasn't just being followed, he was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. I cannot imagine the terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th. His death is a loss to his children, his parents, his sister, all of us in his family, his friends, his colleagues in the legal community, and to his students at FSU Law School. Danny's boys each have a photo of themselves with their Abba, their dad, beside their beds. They grew up kissing the framed photo and saying, "Good night, Abba, I love you." The pictures and memories are all they have because cruel, cold-hearted people took him from all of us who loved him. My heart was broken when Danny died. My grandsons were going to grow up without the father who loved them. I wondered, how could we help these boys through this trauma? It was then that my husband and I knew that the best way to honor Danny's memory would be to share with these children an abundance of love, the love that Danny would have given them if he were alive. It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder. In both of Catherine Magbanow's trials, the state claimed she was the mastermind behind Danny's murder. In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind. And now in my trial, they claimed that I, this grandma, was the mastermind behind the murder. I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it. With not one iota of actual evidence, the state convinced a Tallahassee jury that I solicited and conspired with other people to have Danny killed. Where is the evidence prior to the murder? The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue,
That
Mrs.
revealed-
Adelson, as it relates to this statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just giving Mrs. Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m. that revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act? Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence before the murder to convict me. The state couldn't show that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours. Their own star witness testified that my phone was never, I repeat, never at my son's house on the night of the murder. The state's theory that my husband and I dropped off money to my son was blown out of the water by their own witness. And yet, the state continued to push that story, that lie of the so-called money drop, to the jury through the remainder of the trial. And the jury bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. Reasonable doubt. Many months ago, my attorneys filed a motion for a change of venue. An expert witness testified that Tallahassee had been barraged with over 9 years of negative social media, printed news, television news, and podcast publicity about my family. He explained to the court, both with evidence and demonstratives, that for me to receive a fair trial, it needed to be held in any of the researched and designated areas in the state of Florida other than Tallahassee. All I wanted was a level playing field, but the court wanted the trial here in the hotbed of Tallahassee. I sat through 3 days of jury selection. 180 potential jurors were asked if they had developed an opinion in my case. Those that answered yes also added, "I believe she is guilty." Not one person, not one, said, "I think she may be innocent." That should have been a clue to the court to grant our motion for a change of venue. But the court denied the motion.
Wait.
One of my jurors admitted during jury selection that she had background.
That should have been a clue to the court to grant our motion. Oh, wow. I wanted to make sure everybody heard that. That should have been a clue to the court. This is very harsh wording straight to the court. She's not pulling punches here. She's not just talking in general terms about how, she didn't feel like the venue was fair. No, that should have been your first clue, Judge, she says, and you failed.
Information concerning what one of the state's witnesses would be testifying about. Why was she allowed to be on my jury?
What moment?
Another juror.
Mrs. Fulford,
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Zellman, again, this has nothing to do with elocution of any sort. This is a raising of grievances, which are properly given to the appellate court.
Yes.
What does any of this have to do with sentencing?
Just one moment, please.
What did she say? I couldn't hear her. And neither did the transcript, didn't pick it up either. The court's, the YouTube transcribing service. So they're going to look at her thing. But I guarantee you they have looked at Donna's before. Some possibility they hadn't looked at Harvey's, maybe, but I guarantee you they've seen Donna's. There's no question in my mind that they just said, write whatever you want.
Turn off or step out.
So they're looking through what she's written there. This is very unique. Allocution. Allocution is something a defendant has a right to do, to speak to the judge at sentencing. And so I think that's why he's, trying to give a lot of leeway here, because that is a right that she has and that's protected. But at the same time, that should have been a clue. Like, wow, Wow. You were clueless, Judge. She just called the judge clueless. That is really bold, shall we say, when the judge is about to sentence you. No, we'll see if they're going to talk. But the court said that, I can take that utter lack of remorse into account if you want to keep talking this way. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end. I want to make sure we don't miss anything. This is quite dramatic, much more so than I was anticipating. So they're trying to figure out, okay, what can she say? They would have liked her to get in the whole statement. I thought the comment I put up just a little bit ago about she's appealing, that was from Maddie F., saying she's appealing to the court of public opinion, not the judge. I think there's truth to that, Maddie. And I think also to some extent to the appellate court. I think she's getting her points out, and she thinks that it matters not at all in terms of what the judge is going to do, and it might matter for her in terms of the court of public opinion. I think that's exactly right, or in terms of the appellate court and the way the appellate court views it. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Please.
What happened to Danny is unforgivable. But I am an innocent woman convicted of this terrible crime without evidence. Danny was a brilliant legal scholar. He would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are two crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit. I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside of Tallahassee. 11 years ago, Danny was murdered and taken from all of us who loved him. For the past 9.5 years, the state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed, nor could I ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this. And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
Wow.
Defense have any further argument to make?
Before Ms. Fulford makes the argument, I want to address the comment that the court made a few moments ago concerning considering lack of remorse in fashioning a sentence. Shepherd restate 227 Southern 3rd 746, the First District Court of Appeal held that lack of remorse cannot be considered in fashioning an appropriate sentence. If this were a situation where remorse and admission of guilt may be grounds for mitigation, the lack of these factors cannot be used to increase the defendant's sentence, and such reliance violates the defendant's due process rights. And they also rely on Ritter v. State 885 Southern 2nd 413, also a first DCA case.
I believe the Supreme Court has ruled on this issue concerning remorse and lack of showing remorse as well.
So they're having a legal argument here, kind of in the middle of all of this. The judge had made that comment saying, I'm allowed to take into account the fact that you are denying having been involved as part of your lack of remorse. And the defense lawyer is standing up and saying, the Court of Appeals says you can't take that into account. Now, the judge is arguing the Supreme Court, which is higher than the Court of Appeals, has said I can. We'll see where it all shakes
If you
out.
need me to find the citation for you, I will.
Yes, please.
We'll take a 10-minute break.
Oh, okay. We're going to take a break. Well, that'll give us a chance to talk about the shocking turn of events of this sentencing hearing that we are seeing. So they're going to take a break. We'll go ahead and move forward. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and move it forward. And we were a little bit behind from the comments. So, okay. Wow. So Donna Adelson, really clear. Numerous witnesses have said that she was not involved. Her husband, Harvey, among them, said that Donna did not participate in these acts. You were sending an innocent woman to prison. This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong. That was Harvey Adelson. The judge has repeatedly interrupted and said, what does this have to do with what you're supposed to be doing, which is convincing me to show mercy. Instead, you're arguing the case. Some witnesses, some of the people making statements were even arguing the case, arguing things like what we just heard Donna talk about, the fact that the judge chose not to change the venue. So Donna started out talking about the loss of Dan Markel and what a caring and loving father he was. She talked about the boys kissing a framed photo of Dan every night. And she made a point that is fair, that the state can't make up its mind who is the mastermind. At Katie's trial, it was Katie. At Charlie's trial, it was Charlie. At Donna's trial, it was Donna. That is correct, although I think that their focus at any of these trials was on the person who was on trial and of that person's commanding role in that. But that doesn't mean that they weren't all involved. And so I don't think that that's a truly legitimate argument.
Briefly, Your Honor, Davis was not a capital case. This is a capital case. Although the criminal punishment code only applies to non-capital cases, I would submit to Your Honor that it is distinguishable under those circumstances.
Going to read from head note 8 and 9. Nor was Davis forced to choose between allocution and maintenance of his innocence. He certainly could have allocated without voicing a disagreement with the verdict, blaming the driver, the police, his lawyer, the trial court for his conviction, and attempting to explain his personal interpretations of the law to the judge. He could have asked for leniency without admitting guilt. He could have provided the judge with reasons to, but he instead chose to make a lengthy statement claiming innocence, denying responsibility, and placing blame for his conviction on the alleged misconduct of others. The trial court was under no obligation to ignore such statements and did not err in considering those statements and imposing legal sentence here. Do you have anything that distinguishes Davis in any way?
As I said, Your Honor, Davis was not a capital case.
Very well. Any other argument or evidence the defense wishes to present?
Yes, Judge, thank you.
So what they're arguing about is whether or not the judge can.
The court has no choice but to.
They are making an argument over whether or not the judge can take into account the fact that she's denying involvement as a lack of remorse, as opposed to her denying involvement is irrelevant to the question of how he ought to sentence. So, and now Jackie Fulford's going to make a little statement.
Mrs. Adelson to life for the first-degree murder charge. We are going to request a downward departure as to counts 2 and count 3, the solicitation and the conspiracy counts.
What are the grounds?
Pardon me?
What are the grounds?
Yes. The grounds are, one is non-statutory, and that's disparity in the treatment between co-defendants. And the second reason is statutory, and it is Florida Statute 921.00262B. The defendant was an accomplice to the offense and was a relatively minor participant in a criminal conduct.
He's not going to buy that one because the criminal conduct wasn't just the act of shooting.
Report of sub B would be the trial record, or do you have something more specific?
For B, we're going to rely on the trial record with respect to the conduct of Mrs. Adelson, and we would ask the court to take judicial notice. Your Honor did preside over Charlie Adelson's trial, and the evidence regarding the other co-defendants' activities or participation was also brought out in the testimony in the trial of Mrs. Adelson, so we'd rely on that record, Judge.
Ms. Kappelman, as to the argued grounds for statutory mitigation and also non-statutory mitigation, does the state have any argument to make?
No, Your Honor.
You may continue.
Thank you, Judge. I'll start with the disparity. Do you need case law citations for this, or you're aware of it, Judge? Okay. The first case would be Sanders v. State, 510 Southern 2nd, 296. This is a Florida Supreme Court case from 1987.
One moment. 510 Southern 2nd. What was the other part of the citation? I have copies, Your Honor.
296, and that's Florida Supreme Court in 1987.
Go ahead.
State versus Fernandez, 927 Southern 2nd, 939, which is a third DCA case from 2006.
May I approach, Your Honor? You may.
And then the third case, Judge, is State, I can't pronounce it, but State versus Kunkemoller, 333 Southern 3rd, 335. That's a first DCA case from 2022, but it is distinguishable because it does not address the issue of culpability as the first two cases do, but I wanted to bring that to your attention.
So what they're talking about, the disparity, I assume has to do with Luis Rivera. Everybody else received pretty similar sentences. The judge is considering the arguments that they've made in terms of the case law and whether or not Donna is being treated differently. There's a disparity in the way she's being treated versus the way other defendants have been treated. So they want a downward departure, meaning they want less of a sentence. The normal sentence would be this, you're going to go downward less from that. That's what they're asking for. While we're waiting, I'm going to try. I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to deal with whether I can be heard. Give me just a second. Right now, nobody's speaking on the court side, so we don't have to worry about that. So they've made two arguments for downward departure. One is that Donna's being treated differently. There's a disparity in the way she's being treated with the others. The second is that she was an accomplice and a minor participant in the criminal conduct. I think it's very unlikely the judge will have any sympathy with that, because the question of criminal conduct isn't limited to the moment of the shooting. The criminal conduct is all of the things around the shooting, like the decision to do it, like the organizing of it, like the paying for it. All of those things are part of the criminal conduct. And so if she had not been convicted of the murder,
May I continue?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Judge. I'll start with the disparity argument, if I may, Your Honor. In this case, there have been several co-defendants who have either been tried or entered pleas and received sentences. I want to, for this particular argument, relate exclusively to Luis Rivera. He testified in the trial, and through himself and other witnesses, Your Honor has heard what he did in this case. And what he did in this case compared to what the state has alleged and the jury found that Mrs. Adelson did, the culpability levels are very different. Mr. Rivera was allowed to enter a plea to second-degree murder. And although, as the PSI indicates, he received a sentence of 19 years in the Department of Corrections, that was run concurrent with a sentence he was already serving in a completely unrelated matter in a federal case where he got a 12-year sentence. So the number of years that he will actually serve for his participation in the homicide of Dan Markel is 7 years in the state of Florida Department of Corrections. His conduct, as Your Honor can recall, is that he traveled to Tallahassee sometime in June and scoped out the home of Danny Markel, engaged in some drug activity with Sigfredo Garcia, and then returned to South Florida. A few weeks later, he returned to Tallahassee and again scoped out Danny Markel's house. But he didn't just do that. Prior to arriving in Tallahassee, with himself knowing that he and Sigfredo Garcia were going to kill Danny Markel, he purchased and provided the very firearm that was used to kill Danny. He came to Tallahassee and they sat in wait outside his home. They followed him with Mr. Rivera being the driver, followed him while he took his 2 little boys to daycare, and he sat and watched as Mr. Markel, hand in hand, took those children inside the daycare. He then followed Mr. Markel all the way to the gym, sitting in wait. What was he waiting for? He knew what he was waiting for. Mr. Markel did not. He had no clue that these men were outside in a car just waiting for him to go to a place where they could shoot and kill him. And they waited until he exercised. They watched him get back into his vehicle, and then, like hunters, traveled and followed all of this time period straight to his home. And there was no hesitation. He knew exactly what they were going to do. Without any hesitation, they pulled right in behind Danny. Danny's car was still running, the garage door was up, and Sigfredo Garcia exits the car and shoots Danny Markel, having done nothing to these men, in the head twice. How Mr. Markel survived, I don't know. But then Luis Rivera is the getaway driver. They flee the scene, they flee Tallahassee, and then Mr. Rivera stops to allow Sigfredo Garcia to dispose of the murder weapon, which has never been found. And then he drives back to South Florida like nothing has happened, purchasing motorcycles and cars, but most importantly, getting paid for the work that he's just done. The payment came from Catherine Mangbanawah, and I'll address her in the next segment. The point here is, Judge, that over time, reading different things, you've heard a lot of arguments about what Mrs. Adelson's participation allegedly was. But when it comes down to it, and I didn't mention, but Luis Rivera did have an extensive criminal history at the time that he committed this offense. What actually came out at trial with respect to Mrs. Adelson, and I'm saying this, understanding, as you've learned, that Mrs. Adelson still maintains that she is innocent of this conduct. But what the state was able to show through their testimony and evidence was that the role that she played, according to them in the prosecution, was very minimal. The evidence showed that she was very upset when relocation was denied in 2013, not knowing that her daughter had agreed to it, not knowing that until she sat here in trial hearing her daughter's testimony. She wrote some very ugly emails. She said some very ugly things. But in not one of those emails did it ever say that she wished harm upon Danny Markel. And this was in 2013. The evidence was presented by the state that was over a year later that Danny was killed after relocation had been denied. Although they argued that there was continued hostility on the part of Mrs. Adelson regarding the issue of relocation, with the hundreds of thousands of emails they had, they didn't present evidence that this ongoing dispute was being brought up in any way between the parties. The relocation between them, that issue had stopped. The testimony that was elicited was that Charlie Adelson, the son of Mrs. Adelson, was the one who was close with Mrs. Adelson, and that when she had a problem, the argument from the state was, when she had a problem, Charlie was the problem solver. And the testimony at court that was presented by the state supported that theory, that Charlie was the problem solver. They further elicited evidence, testimony, that without any knowledge of what the phone calls were, Catherine Magbanawala testified that when she was with Charlie Adelson discussing scenarios, which she didn't describe what scenarios she was discussing, that on occasion there would be a phone call between Charlie and his mother. She didn't hear the mother speaking. In fact, he left the room when he talked to, allegedly, the mother, and he came back in. He never relayed to her any information about the phone call. But the state's theory and the evidence that they presented was because Donna Adelson had been so upset about the fact that relocation was denied, and she continued to be upset, according to the testimony, that Charlie Adelson took it upon himself to reach out to someone, which was his girlfriend, and have her get someone that she knew who could commit this murder, make contact with them. According to the testimony in the state, in this case, Charlie Adelson told Catherine Magbanawala, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, it's just as the names were reused, but Mrs. Magbanawala, that she wanted him killed and he would pay for that to happen. Her testimony was she had no idea what the payment was going to be, but she did in fact reach out to the father of her children, Sigfredo Garcia, and he agreed to commit the homicide. Mr. Garcia then elicited Luis Rivera to participate with him in the homicide, and I'm not going to go through all the evidence in the case. I want to focus on what Mrs. Adelson allegedly did. Up until the point of the...
So this is very much re-arguing the case. I would expect to hear the judge saying something about that very, very soon.
The homicide, the only evidence that was presented about Mrs. Adelson's participation were those ugly emails. And there's a distinction, as we discussed during the trial and sometimes even at sidebar, of the evidence being up to the moment that Mr. Markel was killed. Up to that time, the only evidence introduced by the state in this trial for that time period were those ugly emails, and they were ugly. She called him very foul names. She said some ugly language. She clearly was not happy. And whatever conversations may have taken place while Catherine Magbanawala was inside Charlie Adelson's home and Charlie was outside talking to another person. Mrs. Adelson maintains her innocence. But if you're looking at this particular cause of this disparity in treatment, the state is asking that Mrs. Adelson be sentenced to obviously life on count 1 as she has to be, followed by 30 years in the Department of Corrections on counts 2 and 3. This is far in excess of the sentence that was received by the man who himself testified to hunting down Danny Markel, providing the gun for him to be murdered with, leaving the scene of the crime, disposing of the murder weapon, and going on with his life and his gang as he always had. In that disparity, Judge, it just doesn't reconcile with the facts here of what they say Mrs. Adelson did. Although there was a theme that she was the mastermind, I would argue to the court that the evidence did not show she was the mastermind in any way. The masterminds that were shown in this trial were Charles Adelson and Catherine Magdanowa. It didn't show any activity prior to Mr. Markel being killed where Mrs. Adelson was involved in any way.
Take away what you're arguing as the theme for the moment. The chief difference between Luis Rivera and your client is he entered into a plea, correct?
That's correct. He did enter into a plea, but that, according to the case law, that can be considered.
And he has also cooperated with the state, testifying in many trials.
He was a cooperating witness testifying in these trials. Mrs. Adelson not only has maintained her innocence, she was never offered anything from the state.
Please continue.
On the statutory basis, that the defendant was...
So let's stop for a minute and talk a little bit about that. So what she's saying is Luis Rivera got less, and therefore I should get less. Granted, she's saying maybe I should get the same, well, the statutory amount on the actual murder charge, which is life. But she's saying as to counts 2 and 3, conspiracy and solicitation, 30 years, that's reasonable. And it's more than Luis Rivera is getting, that he's only received 12 years for this crime, of which he is only going to serve 7. And given his heavy involvement, that's not enough. So she's saying that Donna Adelson, she actually said the only evidence against her, specifically against her, that was prior to anything happening to Dan Markel, was ugly emails, and that was it up until the bump. So those ugly emails are not enough in her view to convict Donna Adelson and end up, well, probably she would agree with convict, but end up with a lengthy sentence of time for those other 2 claims. The judge brought up the fact, okay, yeah, Luis Rivera got less, but he also entered a plea. And that's pretty common that you get less when you enter a plea. That's normal. So she's now about to go into the second part of her argument, which is statutory. She's talked now about one issue that she thinks Donna's being treated differently, and now she's talking about her second.
A minor participant in the criminal conduct. Some of what I've just argued applies to this one as well, Your Honor. But what I wanted to point out here were the ones that we didn't discuss. So Sigfredo Garcia was found guilty at trial, first-degree murder and conspiracy. His sentence was life on the homicide and an additional 30 years consecutive for the conspiracy count. He is the one who rode in the car. He is the one who obtained Luis Garcia to go with him. He is the one who sat in the seat knowing he was going to exit the car while they hunted down Danny Markel. And he's the one who got out and shot Danny Markel in cold blood. Left like nothing had ever happened. Along the way, made many stops, including getting out to hide the murder weapon, and then went on with his life. The killer is getting the same sentence that the lesser participant, the state is suggesting, get as well. Life in prison on count 1, followed by 30 years for the conspiracy and solicitation. Luis Rivera, I've already told you what his role was. Catherine Magdanowa got the information from Charlie Adelson according to the evidence, and at his request obtained someone, Sigfredo Garcia, to do the killing. She is the one who coordinated between Charlie Adelson and Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera. Although she testified that she didn't know Luis Rivera was involved until after it was over, the evidence that the state submitted clearly contradicts that. She was communicating with Luis Rivera before, closely to the homicide, and then shortly thereafter. She's the one that spoke to him. She was sentenced on the first-degree murder to life in prison, and on the solicitation and conspiracy, she was sentenced to an additional 30 years. It was run consecutive. Again, the same sentence that they're asking for on Mrs. Adelson is the sentence that this woman who heard the request for a homicide, found the person to commit the homicide, stayed in communication with both of the individuals who are responsible for killing Danny Markel, followed up with them and provided payment to them,
and then took payment back from them for her to keep for herself. She was also paid in this. She participated, knew it was happening. They had proof that she knew it was happening. That was submitted to the court. All of that evidence clearly distinguishable from the conduct that they presented in evidence about what Donna Adelson did. Charlie Adelson, according to the testimony in this trial and his own, Charlie Adelson wanted Danny Markel dead. So on his close or very first date with Catherine Magbanawa, he asks her out in public at Halloween, some Halloween function, hey, do you know anybody who could get somebody killed? According to her testimony, she followed through with that. With Charlie Adelson, never with Donna Adelson, never communicated with her in any way about this. She worked then, if that's what happened and that's what's been testified to, she worked with Charlie Adelson from October of 2013 until Danny Markel was brutally killed in July of 2014. That entire period, and there's evidence, she admitted to most of it, to her conduct, and there's evidence that was presented in this trial and Charlie's that that's what happened. They made this plan, and that his stapled money was used to pay the killers in this case some $130,000 in cash that was divided up amongst Sigfredo Garcia. Sorry, my mouth is getting dry. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
She's throwing Charlie under the bus here. It was Charlie who had this
Divided up between
deal.
Sigfredo Garcia, Catherine Magbanawa, and Luis Rivera. She then stayed in contact with Charlie Adelson. She convinced Charlie Adelson to get paychecks written to her, and she received those paychecks each time from Charlie Adelson. So for what Catherine Magbanawa did and what Charlie Adelson did, the evidence in this case shows it went far beyond what the state's evidence showed that Donna did, up
She was write the checks.
to and including the time that Danny was killed. So again, if you're going to rate the level of culpability in this case and consider Mrs. Adelson's conduct as compared to those, they're asking that she get the same sentence as both of the people who killed, well, one person that did the killing, Sigfredo, a far more extensive sentence than Luis Rivera, who participated in the killing himself and only got 7 years. The same as Catherine Magbanawa, that apparently worked on this according to the evidence for many, many months and stayed involved even after that. Charlie Adelson is the only one who got a higher sentence. His sentence was life on count 1, the homicide, followed by 30 years on count 2 and another 30 years on count 3, so everything being run consecutively. The evidence that the state has presented is that Charlie Adelson is the one who masterminded this. That's
Oh,
what they've shown. Even though they said Catherine Magbanawa wasn't her trial, if there's
there you go. She said the evidence said that Charlie Adelson is the one who masterminded this. So that was her actual argument to the court. There's a clear throwing Charlie under the bus.
somebody who started this, according to the evidence, it's Charlie Adelson, not Donna Adelson. All the work being done was Charlie Adelson. All the money that was paid was Charlie Adelson's money. Mrs. Adelson, according to the state's evidence, did not do any of that. Again, they had hundreds of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of emails. Never one in all of those emails that we all had to go through did Mrs. Adelson ever suggest any harm to Danny Markel in any way. I understand the verdict, and she has a right to take an appeal, and that's what she'll do. But the evidence in what was argued is very far different in theory than what was actually presented to this jury. And I'm requesting that Your Honor, in determining a sentence on counts 2 and 3, take into consideration that the amount of activity that everyone engaged in this case was far, far beyond what was alleged against Mrs. Adelson. They just didn't come up with the proof for that. They did prove to a jury that she was involved, but that proof and the actual evidence was very limited to the conduct that they say that she engaged in that resulted in Mr. Markel's death. I do want to remark, if I may, just briefly on the issue of remorse. Mrs. Adelson maintains her innocence, and as she has a lawful right to do, will seek an appeal. She may not get another trial. There may or may not be parts of the finding of the jury that is reversed, may not. They can do that on, the appellate court can do that on 1, 2, or 3 counts. There are lots of options that the appellate court has. The reason I say that is this. Mrs. Adelson, maintaining her innocence, could not have shown more remorse for the killing of Danny Markel. And in her statement, although some of it I know was bothersome to the court, in her statement, I hope you heard.
I wouldn't say bothersome to the court.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay. I misread then. I apologize
Please
based on your
continue.
comments.
I thought it was bothersome to the court. I would have said that. I think that's kind of fair. I think the court was upset by that. I'm going to take a very controversial position here, which is I think if a defendant wants to, they can continue to state that they did not commit the crime. And in my opinion, that doesn't show a lack of remorse for the crime. If they wish to continue to say they didn't commit the crime, to me, that's separate. If they admit they did the crime and have no remorse, obviously that's a completely different matter.
One of the things she said in her statement, after most of her statement being about the horrible thing that happened to Danny Markel, was that the people who were responsible for it were in prison. That's a pretty big statement considering what the state believes Mrs. Adelson's position is with respect to the others who've been prosecuted, convicted, and are serving sentences in the Florida Department of Corrections. I also want to say this. The defense's position in this case, from start to finish, has always been, on behalf of Mrs. Adelson, beyond respectful to the victim in this case, Danny Markel. He should not be lost in this case, and I said that in my opening statement. We presented evidence about a wonderful man he was. He did not deserve for this to happen. The Markels gave their statements at the conclusion of the verdict that was issued by the jury, and I listened to every single word. And every single word that they said came out of the terrible grief from the loss of their son and the feelings that they have developed over the course of this 11 years in prosecuting these various people and additional information that has been given to them. Every word they had every right to say. The feelings that they had are exactly what they should have. What happened to Danny Markel, as Donna Adelson has said in her statement, could not have been more horrific. He was treated like an animal, completely unaware that there was any kind of problem, that he would have any kind of physical altercation with anybody. I'm positive the furthest thing from his mind that day was that someone was going to kill him in his garage at his home. He did not deserve what he got. It's been very clear in the prior prosecutions and what was presented in Mrs. Adelson's trial about the conduct of these other individuals. They do deserve to be where they are. They do. Their conduct is unimaginable to me, that human beings would engage in that kind of conduct to bring a man, an innocent man, a well-respected man, an amazing father, to take him away from his mother, his father, his sister, most importantly, his children.
But she's really missing the point there, I think, because the jury found that Donna was involved in exactly that same horrific crime. Not that only those other people were, but that Donna was involved in it. Donna was involved in planning it. Donna was involved in carrying it out, in paying for it.
That was horrific. I understand why those sentences were imposed. Not for Mr. Rivera, but for the ones that were tried and convicted. In this case, Judge, based on the evidence that was presented, the defense is going to ask on counts 2 and 3 that you sentence Mrs. Adelson to 3 years in the Florida Department of Corrections, counts 2 and 3 to run concurrently. My understanding in the court, the clerk can tell me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is Mrs. Adelson has 701 days credit time served. That's what we calculated.
I'll stipulate to 701, Your Honor.
Very well.
Did she say 3
Anything
years?
more on counts 2 and 3,
Concurrent.
Judge, first of all, in order for it to assist Mrs. Adelson, she's going to have to be successful on count 1 on appeal. If she is, anything more than that period of time is going to basically be a death sentence for Mrs. Adelson. She is soon to be 76 years old. Her health has gotten worse while incarcerated, as anyone would probably expect. Her husband is 81 years old. Compared, 3 years compared to the man who participated in the killing getting 7 years, I believe is a just and reasonable sentence for Mrs. Adelson. We are also going to ask, Your Honor, after imposing sentence, I know it's nothing but a recommendation, but we would ask if you make a recommendation to the Florida Department of Corrections that Mrs. Adelson be placed as close to Miami as possible, where her husband resides, so that she can have visitation. I understand we don't have any control over Department of Corrections, but we would appreciate that recommendation. And may I have just one moment, please?
Go ahead.
Okay, fascinating. I guess I can let it keep playing if she's not going to speak for a minute. But
In that, Judge, I would ask that.
oh wait, she's asking for 3 years, saying that if you do anything else, Judge, then even if we win on appeal and we get that count 1 reversed, the murder reversed, then if you give her 30 years on the other 2, that's a life sentence for her because she's 76 years old. So she'd be 106, and you don't live to 106 in jail, despite the best wishes of Mr. Markel, Dan's father, who wished her a long life of 120 years so she could serve it all in prison. Despite that, it's not very likely. Typically, people's health declines dramatically in prison, and there isn't great medical care. So the argument they're making is that you have to give her a really short sentence, because if you don't, you might as well be sentencing her to life in prison for these 2. Interesting claim. We'll talk about that at the end. We'll keep listening.
Also not be housed with Ms. McDaniel, or at least have a separation, if you could recommend that. I know Ms. McDaniel is currently at Lowell CI.
Yes, Judge, I thank you for that, Ms. Kappelman. I wanted to raise that issue because we did check into that. Judge, I contacted the Florida Department of Corrections. They did indicate that they would be able to keep them separate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that folks who are familiar with and friendly with Mrs. McBanois wouldn't be where Mrs. Adelson would be. So we are concerned about that, about her being placed at that facility. I didn't know it before, but the reception center for the women actually keep inmates there. So I know that's a possibility, but again, that's in Ocala, and we're respectfully requesting that she be placed closer to Miami. Thank you.
When you review the last case, the defense has presented for downward departure. Ms. Kappelman, you had something else?
No, Your Honor, I don't.
Review the cases for downward departure, or in support of downward departure, the defense has argued.
I have one word for this whole presentation: bold. This was really bold. They went out there on this. It started off with the people who were friends and so forth, and were arguing the case and arguing legal issues within the case. And the judge, like, what are we talking here? Is this character? And then we moved into Harvey. Just let the judge have it, followed by Donna. Similar. Yeah, I reiterated, said in public, I couldn't get a fair trial here in Tallahassee, and I did not. Couldn't get a fair trial with the judge, couldn't get a fair trial with the jury. I have to be sent elsewhere in order to get a fair trial. And then we have the statement from Jackie Fulford, the attorney for Donna Adelson. She's making similar arguments. She had 2 overall arguments. One was, it's not fair to give Donna more than you give everybody else, like even the shooters. The shooters should get more or at least the same, and Luis Rivera got a lot less. And on top of that, the other people involved got 30 years above it, and so it wouldn't be fair to give her 60 years above it like Charlie was given. So we're asking you for less. She tossed Charlie, just threw him under the bus and said, the only evidence really was against Charlie. She said the only evidence against Donna was these intemperate emails that she wrote, these emails that were really negative about Dan Markel. And that's all really you have against Donna, that the issues around Charlie were the ones that really drove the case. Charlie was the guy behind it. So now, can this be used in Charlie's appeal? No, it can't. This is an argument by an attorney. So it isn't something that can be used against her or against him on his appeal. Either way, it can't be used, or on a retrial. Nonetheless, it's kind of surprising that it was so direct. Charlie, yeah, we get it. Charlie is at fault, but don't look at Donna. As far as the effectiveness of this, I would put it at a very low effectiveness, because this particular judge is not going to hear any of this. This is not what he believes. And he has throughout made it pretty clear how he felt. I think it hasn't been a huge secret that he felt like the Adelsons were involved. It isn't that he ruled against them inappropriately, I don't think, but it was, I think, clear that, he wasn't putting up with anything, that he thought Donna was being overreactive, that she was playing it up, that her tears weren't necessarily real. So all of these things are falling on deaf ears. If anything, I think they're going to upset the judge. I do not see the judge accepting what they're saying and it making any impact on him at all. I think it would be just the opposite. I think it's much more likely that he would be very upset. Neil Morrison asking me, could she scupper her speech in the next few moments too? Which I think was probably asking this at the point when Donna Adelson she was making a comment in front of the judge that was clearly upsetting the judge, to the point where the judge said, I can use this against you, because it can look like lack of remorse. So I can consider this as lack of remorse. And when the judge said that, then Donna Adelson just kept going. And at one point, they finally, her lawyers took it and told her, focus on this one area here, and seemed to ask her to leave out a bunch of other information. So I think, could she do that? Yes, she could and did leave out parts, but I think it was already late. I think they were automatically, I think the judge was already upset. Tina asking about, what's the point of all of this? She's getting an automatic life sentence with a murder charge and is thinking that it's ridiculous. And you're not wrong, Tina. There is a lot of dancing on the head of a pin, lawyers doing what lawyers do involved in this. This is ridiculous in a significant sense. I mean, you're correct. But at the same time, the reason that lawyers dance on the head of that pin is because of the fact that the appeal might end up reversing just a part or some parts of what's happened. And it's basically what Jackie Fulford said at the very end there, which is, if we could get the murder charge reversed, then, and she only had 3 years to serve, and she's already served, I forget how many days, 701 days, she would be out by the time the appeal came through, and she only had 3 years on the 2 extra charges. If that happened, she would be out. It would give her some hope for the appeal. I don't think the judge is going to give that any consideration. I don't think he will even somewhat consider that. In fact, I think this judge will be offended at the very argument that she should receive less than the person who shot the gun, because I believe this judge believes it's equally bad to hire the person who shot the gun as to be the person who shot the gun. So I don't think the judge is going to buy that argument at all. That could just be my read of the judge. It might be incorrect, but that's kind of how I see how he's acted in the past and what I've seen. Nina asking a good question. What about that mentioning the leader of the Latin Kings again? Would you do that? Because Luis Rivera is, at least reputedly, a leader in the Latin Kings gang. He's not that far from getting out either, because of the fact that he did have a reduced sentence. He had a federal sentence, and then he got a reduced sentence on this. So how many years exactly does he have left? I don't know, but it's not that many, considering that he might only get 7 years for this particular case and this particular crime. So it is somewhat risky. I don't know if Charlie will ever be able to return to the Miami system or to the Florida system. He may always be up there in South Dakota. Sal has been a member for 3 months. Awesome. We are.
Having reviewed the cases presented by the defense concerning the downward departure, also as well the argument that has been presented, the court has reviewed its notes of the trial and will rule on the issue of downward departure at this point. Florida Supreme Court has a two-part test concerning whether a downward departure should be granted or could be granted by the trial court. The first is whether the trial court can impose a downward departure sentence based on a valid legal ground proven by a preponderance of the evidence. The second step is whether the trial court decides whether it should impose the downward departure based on the totality of the circumstances. As to both the non-statutory grounds that have been argued and the grounds contained within section 921.0026, subsection 2, subsection B, in reviewing the trial court's notes, what has been argued by both the defense and also as well the court's relying on the record itself, court will find that there is a ground for non-statutory downward departure, but it declines to exercise its discretion. As to the statutory ground, I will find that both the defendant was an accomplice to the offense and a relative minor participant in the criminal conduct. I will find that has not been proven, but in addition to, the court would still decline to exercise its discretion. As to the sentence in this matter, Ms. Adelson, please rise.
So he dismissed that.
Level of planning and coordination to bring the murder of Professor Markel to fruition was significant in this case. These were not crimes of chance or opportunity, and these crimes also required you to conspire with your son and others. You certainly can choose to deny your involvement and maintain innocence. The court finds the evidence in this case is clear. You will be sentenced accordingly this afternoon. The jury has found you guilty on charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation to commit first-degree murder, and the court previously adjudicated you guilty as to these same charges on September 4th of this year. On count 1 of the indictment for first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole or release pursuant to sections 782.04 and 775.082 sub 1 sub A Florida statutes. On count 2 of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to 30 years in the Department of Corrections that will run consecutive to count 1. The court will also sentence you to 30 years in the Department of Corrections on count 3. Counts 2 and 3 are to run concurrent with each other, but consecutive to count 1. As to the fees and costs, the clerk can please announce those at this time.
$2,100 as a fine pursuant to section 775.083, $105 as the 5% surcharge required by section 938.04, $20 as the court cost pursuant to section 938.06, crime stop and trust fund, $3 as a court cost pursuant to section 938.01, subsection 1, criminal justice trust fund, $50 pursuant to section 938.03, crimes compensation trust fund, $225 pursuant to section 938.05, local government criminal justice trust fund, $2 as a court cost pursuant to section 938.15, county criminal justice education, $50 as a court cost pursuant to section 775.083, subsection 2, county crime prevention, $65 as a court cost pursuant to section 939.0 $1.185, county additional court costs.
So there's a slight victory for her there, very slight, in that the conspiracy is 30 years, the solicitation is 30 years, but the two of those will run concurrently. And then the conspiracy will run consecutively to the life without parole. Sort of breaking that down, what the court is saying is, I'm giving you 30 extra years on top of life without parole, but I'm going to say that it's not 60 years on top. It's only 30 years because those can run together. You can, for every year you do conspiracy, you can count that toward your solicitation. Now, if the murder charge sticks, none of that matters. If the murder charge gets through the appeal, she has nothing to lower her sentence. It will be life without parole. She will die in prison. There will be no question about it. And now on top of that, she would have to have everything reversed because of the fact that now she has 30 years on top of the life without parole. So there's very, very little chance that Donna ever gets out of prison. What they're doing right now is just reading through all the costs and so forth that are, let's fast forward. There's a small break there. We'll see if there's anything else. Oh, they're just ending it. Okay. So that's the end of it. We'll make sure. Here we go. Make sure there's nothing.
That have been argued on September 4th.
So we'll leave it right there. We'll wait until she opens her eyes.
On count one of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to 30 years in the Department of Corrections that will run consecutive to count one. The court will also sentence you to 30 years in the Department of Corrections.
So and the court is just doing kind of your typical costs. This is not in any way a surprise. It's pretty much what you would expect given what other people have received, except that I'm fairly certain, if memory serves, that Charlie got 30 years and 30 years that were tacked on top. Nothing ran concurrently. Donna is getting at least the conspiracy and the solicitation will run concurrently. I think the judge was very hacked off at the approach taken during the sentencing hearing. This is not an approach calculated to appeal to the judge, but I think that there is a reason for that. I don't think it was for this judge. I think it was for other audiences. And we've had some good suggestions in there. In fact, I was thinking we ought to do a poll. So because the question is, who was this for? Because it wasn't the judge. Who was this sentencing hearing for? And here are the options that I can think of. One would be the appeals court. One would be the public. I saw another good option. How about the boys? Wendy's boys. And then we'll add another all of the above, and we'll see what you vote for. Because the one audience I don't think it was for is the audience of this judge. He has no patience with this sort of approach. He completely disagrees with it. He finds, I believe he has believed all along that their denials were ridiculous, that their theories and stories and arguments made no sense, that they were trying to get out of a crime that they clearly had committed. That was my impression of how he felt as we watched him proceed in the case. So I don't think it was ever going to successfully persuade this judge. So I think the audience was someone other than this particular judge. But in the end, he gave her something he didn't give to Charlie, at least if I'm remembering correctly, but it's still well past her life. And there's no exception to that. Unless she gets the entire case overturned, she will spend the rest of her life in prison. Practically speaking, she will not be coming out again. And that is the result of what he said. There are a few people I need to there are a few people that have questions over here that I need to answer. Let's see. Kelly, Cats and Poodles is saying, but if Donna hadn't asked Charlie, he wouldn't have asked Katie. Exactly. He wouldn't have asked the gunman. Just shows how little clue Donna has about her own actions. And I think that is exactly what the judge is thinking, Kelly, that it's not really fair and doesn't accurately reflect the guilt involved if what you do is just say, hey, I just had money. This guy decided to do what he was going to do on his own. You can't look at me for that just because I was willing to pay him for it. I mean, I don't have much guilt. He's the one who went out and did it, dummy. I mean, you can't pass off blame like that, because if you did, then you would constantly have people with money willing to pay other people to commit the crimes for them. And then the only people who would suffer consequences would be the people who received the money. And the law isn't set up like that, and that clearly isn't fair. It isn't a right way to proceed. So at this point, I think that's, Kelly, what you're saying is exactly what the court thought, which is that doesn't make a lot of sense. Sal has been a member for 3 months. We are so glad to have you. Don't forget, at 7 o'clock, so just an hour and 45 minutes from now, we are having a members-only live stream. We are going to be playing a murder mystery game with ChatGPT. So I don't know who the murderer is. We will find out. It will not be the Adelson case. It's just a generic case. Not a true case, just for fun. We're just playing a game. Kate. New member, that's awesome. So glad to have you. Welcome, Kate, and perfect in time. And thank you, Kate, for the coffee. Appreciate that very much. DB Bentley, thank you. What a generous gift. Very appreciated. I'm glad you've enjoyed the coverage. Donna Adelson's trial, we covered Charlie and then Donna. It has gone on and on. There are lots of questions about whether Harvey or Wendi will ever be arrested or ever be charged. At this point, neither one has. You heard Harvey stand up and make an impassioned speech on behalf of his wife in which he said she was not guilty. That's exactly what Donna said as well. Thank you, Mortal Clown. I appreciate that very much. I want to say a couple more words about Donna and about what Donna said, because that was a total surprise to me. I was not expecting the out there, very deliberate statements that frankly were just calculated to upset the judge. This particular judge, not going to appreciate any of those. And she was making those statements anyway. I don't think it made a difference, but he clearly was not happy by the way he told her, I can consider this on your lack of remorse. You clearly aren't admitting that you did anything. But I would not have expected anything different. Her position throughout the trial was she did nothing. She had no involvement. I was maybe a little surprised that Jackie Fulford was so clear about the evidence having shown Charlie was involved. Not that you could argue the evidence showed Charlie was involved or, the state contends, but no, she said the evidence showed Charlie was involved. Evidence showed Charlie was in charge. Charlie had the idea, but not Donna. She drew that distinction. So let's talk a little bit more about what Donna did, because I truly was astonished when she made the statement that it should have been a clue to the judge when some of the jurors were asked, have you ever heard of this of this case before? And if they said yes, they were then asked, what did you think? And she said that 100% of those then said, I think she's guilty. No one said, I think she's innocent. No one said that. And therefore, her statement was, as close as I could get it to written down, was that should have been a clue, that you should have granted our motion for change of venue. I don't disagree that Donna had a good argument for a change of venue, and I can understand that she would be upset that it wasn't granted. But how does that statement help? There is nothing in that statement that helps with this judge. And her whole goal today is convincing this particular judge to give her fewer years, because just as her lawyer said, if she couldn't do that, then the appeal really is unlikely to end up helping her unless she gets the whole case thrown out. she's not going to have any chance at getting one single count thrown out, and she could maybe get out before the end of her life. It's just not going to happen based on the numbers and based on her age. She also said, I am an innocent woman convicted without evidence. And she then went on to invoke Dan Markel, her ex-son-in-law. She said he would have been appalled at this total lack of justice, that he would never have wanted to see Donna be convicted. She went on to say that there were 2 crimes committed, Dan Markel and Donna Adelson, making herself an equal victim with Dan Markel, that they were both wronged. He by being killed and she by being convicted for his crime. Very, very bold statement for her to say that there were 2 crimes and one of them was committed against her. She has been convicted of the murder. And yet here she said that one of the crimes was against me, was against convicting me. Again, total lack of understanding, or I guess maybe caring about how this judge is going to feel, because this judge is not going to appreciate that. Marie is a new member. Welcome, and we are delighted to have you, and we'll see you tonight at 7. Nell has gifted a lawyerly membership. I much appreciate it. And Nell, I appreciate that. If you have, you can turn on the ability to receive a gifted membership. Our mods will put that in the chat for you. Nina is saying that she feels bad for Donna, but Harvey yelling at the court showed a lot. It really was. But all of this was very unusual. There was nothing normal about what you just saw. The only innocents are the children, and they lost the most. That is the truth. Bless them. It was sad to me, especially we replayed the victim impact statement of Mrs. Markel, and she talked about one of her dearest goals and desires is for Dan's children to come up and see his grave and meet and participate with, be part of his family. Annie Legg is a new member. Welcome. And perfect timing, since 7 o'clock, we will be having our next members only. So you will be getting a notice about that very soon. Let's see if there are any more comments about what we just saw in terms of what Donna said. Was it a lack of remorse? Clearly, but that's because she said she was innocent and she denies it. She said that she hopes that her appeal will give her a fair trial outside of Tallahassee. That's a theme that got introduced in the jail calls. Remember those jail calls with Charlie? They went on and on and on about how Tallahassee was the source of all their problems. It was Tallahassee and the failure of Tallahassee to even be capable of giving them a fair trial because of the fact that they believed that the Adelsons looked down on them. And yet, notice some of the things that they were looking at. One example would be Wendi's book had some comments about a small town, which the prosecutor, Georgia Kappelman, suggested was like Tallahassee. And then Wendi said, yeah, Wendi denied it. Wendi said it wasn't Tallahassee, but that was included there as far as what would actually, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the fact that I see that I'm frozen over there. But anyway, my apologies. Who knows? I'm almost wrapped up. I've got one more comment to make, but that the whole issue of Wendi's book, it didn't come in. It never came into this trial. And therefore, there was nothing about some of those factors that they thought were so important that actually could have made a difference in this trial. So we've had the final sentencing of Donna Adelson. She has received life in prison without parole. That was known. And then she received 30 years on solicitation and conspiracy. Those will run consecutive to the life without parole, but concurrently together. So there's, barring something really surprising coming out of the Court of Appeals, Donna Adelson will spend the rest of her life in prison. I will see you all in the next video. And for members only, I'll see you at 7 p.m. tonight. Thanks to our mods, Marlon and Mama Pinks. They are much appreciated.